Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the best entitled people stories we've read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled people you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that for every thumbs up this video gets, she won't try to get anyone fired for an entire week. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My Karen in-laws are demanding I have more kids even though I don't want to. My husband and I have a 4-year-old daughter together. She is our one and only, and I was done after her. I got sterilized earlier to prevent falling pregnant again. My in-laws are unhappy about this because my husband is their only kid. They've said I was too rash in making the decision because I'm young, 30, and that I should think about my daughter and them and how a bigger family is always better when you have the choice. They told me it was unfair, that I was wrong. They deserve more grandkids. That was when I told them what I did. For context, our daughter was a much wanted and very planned baby, but the first 18 months of her life were the worst of mine. She was diagnosed as being a high-needs baby, and that is underplaying it. She never stopped crying, and there was no clear cause. We were in and out of the ER with her. We never got a break because nobody could stand to babysit her for us with the crying. My in-laws were around, and they would leave because it bothered them so much to hear her cry like that. A few times they would tell me to stress less, but I couldn't leave the house with her without getting looks or comments from strangers. We were spending so much money taking her to the hospital and the doctor to try to figure out what was wrong. We paid for tests, we paid for all kinds of different formulas and other things suggested. It was exhausting. It got so bad, my husband lost his job because he was showing up to work exhausted and unable to function. I was unable to function. I would hear her cries in my sleep, and I ended up needing therapy because for another year I would fall asleep and wake up in tears because it still haunted me. We're not sure how or why it stopped, but thank goodness it did because I was hanging on by a thread. After our daughter though, I could not stand the thought of experiencing that again. Nobody could tell us what it was, why it happened, just that there are documented cases of some babies like that. It's not a comfort to me or us. My in-laws do not go after my husband like this, I guess because he's not the one who got sterilized himself. But I said what I did because it's true. They were no help to us, and they don't owe us that. But with them demanding more grandkids from me, they should be willing to face up to the fact that they were no help when we needed it the most. They're mad. My husband told them I was right, but they claim I had no right to say that to them. I never normally would have, which is making me doubt myself. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. If they wanted more grandkids, they should have had more kids. Your decision to have kids is between you and your husband. They are your husband's parents, and therefore he should be intervening and telling them to quit their crap. The more complaining they do towards you is merely building a wall between you and them, brick by brick. Not the jerk. Even if your kid was a perfect sleeper and uber calm, you don't owe them more grandkids. Your daughter was a difficult baby, and no one in the family wanted to support you to the point of people losing their jobs. That's a nightmare. They probably only want more grandbabies because they missed out, with your first daughter being a crier. Am I the jerk for buying personalized school supplies for my daughter so it can't be redistributed in class? My daughter, Mia, who's 9, has started a new school recently. We moved recently and she had to start a new school. I got a list of supplies that the teacher required, plus extras like extra packs of crayons, etc. You know the deal. While I don't necessarily agree with this, it's not a hill that I was willing to die on, so I got everything on that list. However, I also got my kid her own supplies. Now, the list didn't say to not label them. Mia is very particular on what type of stationery she likes. I've heard horror stories of kids' stuff being redistributed and them ending up with crappy supplies. So I sat down with Mia and we got her personalized binders and notebooks and pencils with her name on Etsy. It's all part of the item, so it can't be removed and given to another kid. Like I said, as requested, I bought extra binders, etc. It turns out that I was right to do so. When Mia got home, she brought a passive-aggressive note from the teacher about Mia's supplies. Apparently, she tried to gather all supplies and have kids pick another one. She requested that I switch Mia's supplies to generic ones, which I'm refusing to do. The teacher now requested that I stop by to have a chat regarding Mia's supplies. I posted in a local Facebook group and parents are divided, so I need another opinion before I go meet with Mia's teacher. Am I the jerk for buying my kid personalized stationery so it cannot be taken away from her? You're the jerk. Part of this is learning to share. I know I'll get fried for this. Not all kids have it equal. I'm one of the rich. I'm not, but relatively speaking, parents in a very poor New York City school. Everything I buy is for everyone, and I buy extra. This is my way of thinking as a whole, and I want my kid to think this way too. Extend this also to education, healthcare, love, anything. If more tax money was allotted to education, this would be a non-issue. I also slip the teachers extra cash for the book fair and let me know if any kids need money for a field trip. It's so simple. Potentially, you're the jerk. It depends on how they're doing this. You may be interfering with classroom management, taking valuable teaching time away from all the kids. It's common where I live for the kids to start with their own supplies and then for extras to be stored in the classroom for later distribution by the teacher. When my kid was in 3rd grade, they'd distribute more notebook paper and pencils every Monday morning so the kids would have what they needed for the week. They'd distribute new folders when they started a new project or subject that they needed a folder for, paints when they started an art project, etc. They need all the kids to be cool and just take from the same pack until it's used up, then open up the next one. If you teach Maya to be all, "No, I want my special paper," every Monday morning, that's going to be a problem. Imagine a classroom of 30 kids all demanding their own special paper. It's nonsense. This is an issue of practicality. You can't expect a class full of 9-year-olds to manage their own supplies for a year. There's nowhere for them to each keep individual stockpiles of supplies, and even if there were, most 9-year-olds aren't that good at rationing. You can't ask parents to send their kids thing on this day throughout the year because too many parents will be bad at that. This is a good time for Maya to learn when it's appropriate to be particular about stuff and when she needs to go along to get along. You're the jerk for referring to your kid using subpar crayons or cheap paper as a horror story. The only reason your kid is particular about these things is because she has the privilege of being so. And instead of instilling some perspective about what's actually important in the scheme of things, you're creating drama and nonsense on a hill you're supposedly not choosing to die on. Why people want to play some sort of haves versus have-nots over school supplies is weird and sad to me. You're the jerk. You're making your daughter look like a snob who's too good for what everyone else has. You're making yourself look difficult because you refuse to follow the same guidelines that all the teachers in the school follow. If you want your daughter to have fancy stuff just for her, keep it home. Not the jerk. Please don't let these commenters upset you. I've been in the same position as you are, as a mother myself, and I know it sucks. I'm sure I'll be called a Karen for this, but whatever. My husband and I both grew up very poor, having very little. We decided at the beginning of our marriage that we would always work hard and budget responsibly to ensure our kids could have the nice things that we never got to experience. For example, I didn't have my own bed until I moved in with my husband when I was 19. Well, I shared it with him, but you get the point. So when our son came home from his first day of kindergarten and I found out that everything we bought for him had been redistributed, you bet your butt I was upset. They even took his Transformers backpack. My son is obsessed with Transformers, and he ended up with a generic gray backpack, while a classmate had his Transformers backpack. I even saw the other kid wearing it when I picked him up that day. When I went to the school to give them a piece of my mind, they simply told me this is standard protocol in our district and that they understand why parents are upset, but there is nothing they can do about it. This year, my son is starting 1st grade, and I'm happy to say that we put him in a private school where this sort of thing is not an issue, and he'll actually get to use the supplies we bought for him. I truly believe we're doing our kids a disservice by teaching them from an early age that redistribution is the way things are supposed to work. We have to teach our kids that not everyone will have the exact same things as everyone else, and that's okay. Expecting things to be given to you just because others have them is not what we should be teaching our kids. Edit. I knew my opinion was going to be unpopular, but to those of you calling me overly privileged, I grew up in a 2-bedroom trailer with 5 siblings and whatever guy my mom had living with us at the time. I know what it's like to have nothing, and I do sympathize with everyone in that position. At the same time, if I had been taught my whole life that I should have nice things just because other people did, I think I would have grown up to be a very entitled person. Edit 2. I don't think I'm entitled just because I want my son to be able to use the supplies that I bought for him, but to each their own. I already struggle with my mental health issues, as I'm sure many of us here do, and I rarely even share my opinions on here because of how blasted I've been in the past. Think I just need to stay off sites like this. I will never understand how some of you can be so mean to a person who simply has a different opinion than you do. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. I'm just glad they didn't do this when I was a kid. I don't know what I would have done if they took my Batman pencil box from me. Sir, you are not even one of the top 20 richest people in the building right now. Some years ago, just a day or two before Christmas Eve, an unusually massive and rather unexpected ice storm descended upon our fair city. As if the terrible cold, blowing, frigid sleet and all holiday preparations having to come to a halt weren't enough, a very large chunk of the city lost power for upwards of 12 hours just after lunch. With a population of 5 million, complete chaos ensued about as quickly as you would imagine. Some sporadic areas of the downtown core still somehow had power, and wouldn't you know it, lucky me was working in one of the only hotels that had light, heat, and water. A luxury hotel with 350 rooms, 13% occupancy, and enough staff on shift to reflect it. Every department in the building was running on absolute bare-bones staff because A, it was the slowest week of the year in our area, and B, pretty much a third of all employees in the building were either out on holidays or lived outside of the downtown core, and all methods of public transport were down for the foreseeable future. This meant calling in more people was pretty much not an option, and the majority of people scheduled to come in for afternoon and evening couldn't make it even if they wanted to. I was in the reservations/PBX office at the same time with 2 other people. We had 2 agents at the front desk, 3 housekeepers in the entire building, 1 houseman, 1 valet, 1 in-room dining server, and 1 chef between in-room dining and the 2 in-house restaurants, since they were completely dead up until this point. Add 1 poor jerk of a duty manager that was the cherry on top of our sundae, and you have a weather catastrophe dream team. We went from 13% to 100% in the span of 3 hours. It was an absolute dumpster fire. People started flooding in and out of everywhere the second they found out we had power. However, because this happened to be a luxury property, the people who could afford to suddenly stay at the very last minute for premium rate just before Christmas were as entitled and insufferable as you would imagine. Once we hit the dinner hour, there was already roughly a 3 to 4 hour wait for in-room dining as, surprise, surprise, no one felt like going out into the Siberian tundra that was forming outside, so they figured they would just order room service. Unfortunately, this was in the days before gig food delivery services, so it was pretty much their only option of not having to leave the building. Everyone was more or less a jerk and pretty upset about the fact that the room service order they had placed for their family of 8 was taking more than 15 minutes to arrive. One guest, however, particularly sticks out to me. For clarity's sake, let's call him Jerk. Since we only have the 3 housekeepers and 1 houseman, and a good 60% of our available rooms were dirty status since we weren't expecting to be at more than 20% for the next week or so, to say housekeeping was working overtime would be the understatement of the year. They were moving as fast as humanly possible, and I'm pretty sure somehow even faster, to flip rooms and try their best to cover whatever deliveries needed to be made. Turn down for us usually started around 7 or 8 p.m. on a normal day and came with a complimentary 250 milliliter bottle of water. For my American friends, that's about a small coffee cup's worth of liquid, barely even worth bringing it to the room. It was more of a gesture than anything, like the mint on the pillow. The jerk in question called down around 4 p.m. asking where his turned-down water was. After explaining that they were generally not brought up until turned-down service several hours later, Jerk still insisted that he wanted it now. I told him the best I could do would be to put in a delivery request, but informed him that the housekeeping and in-room dining teams were extremely behind due to the storm and unexpected influx of bookings, so there would most likely be a very long wait. Maybe an hour later, in between all of the screaming in-room dining guests, repeatedly calling us every 10 minutes to ask if we're sure we have no rooms left, and the flurry of direct, "Why are you sold out though?" inquiries, Jerk called back to ask where his free tiny water is. I launched into my, "We do apologize. However, due to the storm and circumstances out of our control, acts of God, etc., our service team is extremely limited, and we're moving in a priority sequence as fast as we possibly can," speech that had basically become my new catchphrase in the last few hours. Jerk cuts me off, and I kid you not, said verbatim, Well, I have an American Express black card, and I should be top priority. This jerk was in our lowest room category on a CAA rate, complaining about his free thimble of water, while we literally have three of the richest people in the country, one of them being one of the Shark Tank billionaires, in the building, along with pro athletes, musicians, and apparently the entire bridal path. By this point, I'm 10 hours into my 6-hour morning shift. I've spent the whole day being screamed at, harassed, and literally being personally blamed for the bad weather, and I'm just completely over it. Without even pausing or thinking, I immediately snapped back. Well, sir, if it makes you feel any better, all of our other guests that have American Express black cards have been waiting just as long as you, and I don't believe any of them have complained about it. Is there anything else I can help you with? Jerk just grumbled something along the lines of he will be filing a complaint, and I wished him a wonderful day before hanging up while he was mid-sentence. One of the only other people on shift in my department that day was my supervisor, who was a real one. As soon as I hang up, she proclaimed, "I did not hear anything. I have no idea about a water bottle request, and looking through the call recording log, it seems somehow all of the calls from this room number have somehow been deleted, even without being prompted." We wrapped ourselves in blankets, took off our shoes, and ordered pizza to the office. The official forget it phase of the day progressed until the overnight arrived and we got the heck out of Dodge. There was no turn down for anyone that night, and Jerk never did get his tiny water. I invited my supervisor over to our family Christmas dinner. Am I the jerk for locking up my valuables in my house? I, 21 female, and my boyfriend, 23 male, have been living together for 2 years. There's always been a bit of money struggle, as I used to make more than him and have usually been picking up the slack in our household. However, I've started a new job and I'm earning a lot less than before, so I've started to be more cautious about the amount that I'm spending. During our relationship, I would usually buy all of his toiletries and most household products. I told him I would not be doing this anymore, as I need to cut down my own spending, and he also works and is capable of buying things on his own. I thought he had agreed to this, but as time has gone on, I've noticed all of my expensive skincare and even my own deodorant being used up really quickly. I asked him multiple times to please not use my stuff, and even bought him his own skincare so that he could have his own stuff. The thing that sets me off was that I had bought myself a $220 face wash that's only supposed to be used sparingly. I have horrible eczema that I have prescriptions for, and the products I buy are specifically for my eczema. I hadn't used it in a while, and when I picked up the bottle, it was empty. He laughed and said he would replace it, and then refused when he learned of the price. I took inventory of everything else I owned and found out he had used up to $800 worth of product in around 3 months. I know he isn't naive because I tell him the price of everything I get and tell him not to use them. I ended up buying a safe that I put under the sink, and I put everything that I had left inside of it and hid the key. So when I go to shower and get ready, I can use my own things and not worry about not affording to keep my skin in check. When he found out, he lost it and said I was overreacting and that I don't trust him. It's turned into a massive deal, and my friends think I'm being harsh. I simply cannot afford to keep buying more skincare, and I've even been hospitalized this year due to a huge flare-up I had after running out of products. He's taking it very seriously, and I don't know what else to do, as I've already tried asking. Am I the jerk? I mean, not the jerk, but if you're at the buy a safe because I can't trust him to not use my stuff stage, just break up. Came here to say the same. It's amazing how things can gradually go bad in a relationship, and it happens so slow, people don't realize how messed up things have become. That's so true. Took 12 years for me to take a good look at my marriage. This person is so lucky she's young and seeing these red flags now. Yup. The boyfriend is using what is known as the marinara sauce skincare routine. And when OP skincare products aren't just some nice lotions, but actual prescribed medicated creams for a medical condition, it's about way more than skincare. He's maliciously stealing her medication, knowing that it's expensive, then laughing about it and refusing to pay her back. And now he's whining that she locked up her stuff? If he's truly not going to use her stuff, then it doesn't affect him at all if she locks it up. He doesn't get to complain that she doesn't trust him when he's openly and unapologetically untrustworthy. Note, he specifically refused to pay her back because it was expensive. He feels entitled to OP's things and sees no problem mooching off of her. This is a guy that will always hold OP back and keep on lying and stealing from her because he doesn't respect her, and that shines through all of this. OP should take his admissions and go to small claims court after dumping the guy. Not the jerk. Why do people stay with people like this? You're locking up your stuff in his safe so he doesn't steal it, and he's getting mad at you for it? Do you not see how ridiculous that is? He has absolutely no respect for you. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that if he doesn't stop his daughter, I will ban her from our celebration? I, 42 female, got remarried to my boyfriend Jack, 47 male, a year ago. We both have kids from our previous marriages. I have 2 daughters and he has 1 son and 1 daughter. The problem I have is that his daughter, Melissa, who's 27, is very catty. Ever since I and my daughter have come into their lives, she's despised us. I never came into this relationship thinking I'd have any sort of authority or parental role in their lives. I respected their relationship with their dad and never got in the middle. Deep down, I think Melissa is very jealous of my daughter, who's 24. Melissa has repeatedly had meltdowns on any important day for Celeste and tried to control her special days. The reason I think it's jealousy is because Celeste is successful, almost has her PhD in psychology, engaged to a good woman, and is beautiful. Celeste, throughout all of this, has stayed cordial. However, last night while talking about the plans for Celeste's graduation party, my husband asked if we could accommodate Melissa by making the day also about her. I told him no, and that when Melissa has an accomplishment, we will celebrate her. He got upset and said he told her we would, and that she's already making plans. I told him if he doesn't stop her, I will uninvite her. He's been mad at me since. Am I the jerk? Edit. I just want to say this before a comment comes in. Yes, I got pregnant very young. Yes, I love my kids very much. Update. We've read through the post and the comments together. We've gotten nowhere. He's mad I posted it. Fair. And he's mad that I'm unwilling to see how unfair it is for us not to accommodate her when we know how she is. I'm tired of him enabling her. I wanted to have a productive conversation, but he just won't hear it. Update. I've told my husband he either fixes it or he can consider himself and Melissa uninvited. I refuse to have my daughter's massive achievement overshadowed by either of them. Not the jerk. She's an adult. How does she not realize there are some celebrations that have nothing to do with yourself? She really needs to mature. Not the jerk. She's 27. She does not need accommodation. Tell them you're concerned about Melissa's history of meltdowns, and because of Melissa's behavior, she will not be on the guest list. This crap needs to stop now. So let me get this straight. Your husband is upset because he wants to make the graduation celebration for your 24-year-old daughter also a celebration for his 27-year-old daughter. And his daughter is not also graduating, and she has nothing particular going on in her life that warrants a celebration. Assuming the above is correct, you are obviously not the jerk. Both of your daughters are full-fledged adults, and there's literally no reason you should have to pander to or appease his daughter at your own daughter's graduation celebration. Just the fact that he is requesting this is a weird red flag. Like, what is his justification for even making this request? What exactly would you even be celebrating for Melissa? Her mere existence? The whole thing is super strange in my opinion. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband and Melissa? Please let us know. Sounds like Melissa might have had her school supplies redistributed when she was little. Am I the jerk for being annoyed my mother-in-law ate my dinner? Tonight my mother-in-law came over for dinner. I made Swedish meatballs and gravy with mashed potatoes, broccoli, and homemade bread. In my house, we tend to eat in the lounge room unless it's a big event, so I dish up everyone's meal. Kids, mother-in-law, and husband. I take their meals to them, and then before serving mine, I have to run out to the line and grab some clothes that I hung out earlier. No big deal. I served up generous portions for everyone, way more than I thought they could eat. But when I got back from the line, my dinner was gone. I asked if anyone knew what had happened to the food on the bench, and mother-in-law pipes up and says she wanted some more. She's piled her bowl full of meatballs, way more than she would ever eat. I'm stunned. I figure, oh well, I'll just grab some fast food a bit later or something, because maybe she was super hungry. My bad for not cooking enough. But once she's eaten what she wants, she asks for a container so she can take her extra portion home for dinner the next night. I'm pretty annoyed at this point and mention that it was meant to be my dinner for that night, not her takeaway meal for the next night. She says, oh well, you can eat it then. And I reply with, no thank you, and hand her a container. I didn't want to eat her leftovers. She leaves and my husband puts the kids to bed. When he comes back in, he asks what's wrong, and I tell him that I'm hungry. I cooked the meal and didn't get to eat any of it, and I'm upset about it. He agrees mother-in-law was way out of line and messages her that her actions were greedy and selfish. She owes me an apology. She replies telling him that I acted like a jerk. I should have cooked more and anticipated that she would take a portion home for the next day. She offered me what she didn't eat and I didn't want it. It's not her fault, and that I owe her an apology for my attitude and snarky comment. She's also posting on social media about what happened, and people are saying that I'm a jerk and a rude host. I should also add that I'm currently pregnant, and I feel like I can be quite unreasonable at times due to hormones. Am I the jerk? You know she did this on purpose, right? She wanted to start this fight with you. She took all of the food before you had eaten any and then demanded to take leftovers. She's messing with you. Don't ever cook for her again. Sister demands $50,000 of my time from my job. I'm an accountant at a Big Four firm, yellow line for those that know, and my sister is a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids. I'm 27 years old, have no kids, and make 135,000 Canadian dollars a year in my salary. The way my job works is I get billed out to clients at a specified rate, and then my firm pays me the salary. Being an accountant, I get a pretty good view of all things business related. My entitled sister wants to start a business. Great, that will provide them with some extra income since supporting 3 kids on a single income can be very difficult. It was February, and I was in the thick of the busy season, the time leading up to when all the public audits are due essentially. It's long 12 to 15 hour days for months at a time. My sister decided to get her business plan up and running, and she needed some help. I told her that I would not be able to help her until May. This wasn't a good enough answer for her. She wanted to get the funding for her business for April so she could start setting up operations in May. She demanded that I work after work for free, building her a business plan, building out controls that I would eventually have to implement, designing business processes, and then getting her the funding from the bank that she wanted for the business. I shrugged it off until she called my boss. She called my boss, a very lovely but serious managing partner, asking if I could get some time off in the middle of the busy season to help her start her business. My boss's number is public on the firm's website, so that's how she got it. This is not okay. My boss came to my office and told me what happened and told me that if I wanted a vacation, I needed to give them more notice and that usually it wasn't approved. I was confused because I didn't request any time off. He said sister called and I knew exactly what she had done. I was fuming, gagged, gooped, and guffawed to say the least. I called her up and told her to never call my work to try and get me time off in the middle of the busiest time of the year. She was super angry that I could not help her. She ended up going to my mom, a retired chartered accountant, for help. She is retired and doesn't want to work anymore unless she's getting her pay rate from when she was working, which is approximately $1,625 an hour. At the family dinner we have on Sunday, she brings up the fact that nobody in the family is willing to help her get her business off the ground. My mom mentioned that she couldn't afford her rate, in a way meaning she didn't want to do the work because she's retired. I told her that I couldn't take 2 weeks of my life to get her whole business off the ground and ready for operations. I would be able to do it part-time in the spring or summer for opening the next spring. She didn't like that answer again. I told her that I can sign her through my firm first thing Monday morning, but she would have to pay the $50,000 retainer and signing fee. She explodes and leaves, and agreed to have me work on it for free in the spring and summer. I didn't say it was going to be free, but it was going to be a heavily discounted rate of $45 to $50 an hour, not the $650 that my firm charges for my time to clients. Do not work a single minute without a contract, and get paid up front. Don't work for family, period, in my opinion. I get if it's something small, but this sounds huge and costly. Being family is a huge conflict of interest between contractor and contractee. My personal rule is always offer family full price because you support them. Conversely, if you're the one doing the work, it's in my opinion not worth charging for something small, a few hours to a day at most. Karen expects me to pay her college tuition in full. My parents paid for my degree out of college, which I was happy about. It cost $37,000. I was able to save up for a house, and now 4 years out of school, I was able to buy my own condo, and my boyfriend and I are planning to get married, so I've been saving for that. I now have a healthy nest egg, and I'm saving and investing along with that. Then, last month, they told me I have to pay for my sister's schooling, which was $62,000. I don't think that's fair, because they only gave me $37,000 for my schooling and never told me that I had to pay them back or pay for my sister at all. They won't admit it, but I think they lost a lot of money when my dad was trading stocks and doing risky investments since they sold their house right afterwards, saying they wanted to downsize. They also got super bitter and weird with money around our relatives, including picking a fight with my uncle who was always wealthy. No one would tell my sister or I what the fight was about, but now I assume it's because my parents lost most of their money and they're angry my uncle wouldn't help. All my cousins had their tuitions paid, so it's embarrassing my sister wouldn't as well, which is why my parents are insisting that I pay for it. I told them and my sister I would give back $19,000, which was half the amount for my schooling. So it would be like $37K was split between us. They argued with me that I should be paying for her full schooling, as my parents did for me, but I don't think that's fair, as I'd rather have had $37,000 in debt to deal with than $62,000 in debt, especially when this was sprung up on me. I told them either take the $19,000 as half my tuition payment or I wasn't going to discuss it with them again. They then called my boyfriend to accuse him of influencing me to be greedy with my own family when I should be paying for my sister's full tuition amount. I was furious and told them to accept the $19,000 and agreed to never bring up my sister's loan with me again, or I wouldn't have anything to do with this anymore and wouldn't invite them to the wedding. My mom yelled at me and told me I was an embarrassment to the family. My sister came back alone and told me she would take the $19,000 and have it be enough. I told her she had to tell me in front of our parents that she would accept the $19,000, and she retraced what she said, saying she wasn't going to do that. I know she is hoping I give up and give her the money if my parents put enough pressure on me. How dare you make my daughter do chores? This feels so dumb to me, but considering that her mother called and told me I was not being a good host, I'm questioning myself. Yesterday, I'm 42 female, my daughter, who's 16 female, had a close friend over for a sleepover. I ordered them pizza and brought it in and said they could eat whenever they wanted. They weren't hungry at the time and I already finished dinner, so I said I would be upstairs doing some laundry and they could eat whenever they wanted. I also bought them snacks and stuff and everything was kept out on the countertop so they could take whatever. I had a couple of conditions though, and it was just mainly close the snacks whenever you're gonna go to bed and leave the plates in the sink. I let them know that I would come down to load the dishwasher and clean up. However, my daughter ended up putting her plate in the dishwasher and her friend did the same. They also just put the snacks bag in the pantry later on, so I didn't end up cleaning up after them very much. Her friend left this morning, and a couple of hours later, I got a call from her mother telling me that her daughter shouldn't be doing chores at my house. I explained they just put their own snacks and plates away, and her mother said if she were hosting, she would take care of these things, and by making her daughter clean up and wasting her time, I was being a bad host. This feels so surreal to me because these things seem like such basic things to do, but maybe these are considered chores. So, am I the jerk? Edit. I didn't process this earlier, but we have some randomly kind of fun kitchen tools, like this little box you pull to spin blades and cut vegetables, which the friend thought was cool and tried on a carrot in the morning, and I used it in their breakfast, so maybe that also threw her off. Edit 2. Thank you so much for all the support. I'm honestly not sure what I can say to the mom, but the friend actually apologized to me, and I've let her know that she's still welcome anytime. Also, I would appreciate if my daughter's friend is not bashed or insulted. I'm not sure if she said anything, but she seems sweet, and I would rather not blame her for anything. Not the jerk. I specifically remember my friend's dad saying to us at a sleepover, "If you guys don't clean this crap up by the time I get back, you're not sleeping in the house. Want to live like animals? You can do it outside." Ah, the 90s, a simpler time. Not the jerk. That's not chores. That's cleaning up after yourself, which you should do wherever you are at. Well, what do you think? Did OP do anything wrong or not? Please let us know. Depends on where that pizza was from. Pizza Hut for the win. Don't at me. Want me to unload my own trailer? Okay, I needed a vacation anyway. So I was a trucker for a while, and that comes with plenty of stories of crazy things in so many places. One of my favorite stories, however, comes from a piece of malicious compliance but came together just perfectly. The setup. I tend to be a bit on the lazy side when I can get away with it, and I searched for quite some time to find a company that would keep me far away from unloading the trailers myself. I found a good one that had a 95% drop and hook rate. Drop off a trailer full of goods, then grab a new one that's either loaded or to take to the next pickup. 4.9% of them are either handled by the receiving dock or by lumpers, dock workers hired by warehouse companies specifically to unload trucks. That 0.1% is a list of places that just want to watch you work or be convinced that you really shouldn't operate their lifts. In my contract, I saw that there was a place where your hourly rate for unloading was stated. Not for the hours that you were sitting and waiting to be unloaded, but for when you were the one unloading your own trailer. I also saw that the contract allowed for alterations to be made to the price of this service to be charged to the customer. As a joke, I put in not one, but 2 extra zeros. $1,500 an hour for unloading a trailer. Should deter most people. Most people saw that, got a good laugh, then pulled in someone to unload for me. The event. Most people, like I said, were smart. This run was set to arrive at 3 a.m. to a certain clothing store in the mall. Let's call him IB Nicolette. I'd been to this store a few times before, and it was always the same manager, Mr. Dime, receiving me, and it was always the same runaround. If I wanted to get unloaded, I had to wait for someone to get there. Then I'd have to sit and wait while the poor kid back there gets the load off. Then I'd have to wait for traffic to ease up to get out, since it was almost always 10:30 by the time I finally left, leaving me with only a couple hours left on my clock to get to a truck stop for the day. I got there, and yep, Mr. Dime had come in to accept the load. It was always hard to be smart at 3 a.m., and I can only imagine that was part of Mr. Dime's usual runaround. This time was a bit different for a few reasons. 1. He smelled like there was a bit of an herbal calming remedy about him to settle his nerves for the night. 2. He said that he was completely understaffed and there was no one around to unload me, so I'd have to do it myself. 3. I couldn't stay to my usual time because he had to leave before 5. To be fair to him, I did try and say, "Sure, but my contract says..." "I don't give a darn what your contract states. I don't have anyone in until the store opens, and I've got an appointment that's more important than some trucker's contract. Just unload it yourself." I considered it for a moment and went back up to my truck to get my tablet. This was in 2019, before lockdown, and the company had just swapped over to tablets for certain things, like signing off an expense or getting permissions. Mr. Dime was fuming when I came back and handed him the tablet. "Just read through and sign with your finger." He didn't read through. I had 20 pallets at one end and 1,000 pounds each. The only available tool to unload them was a manual pallet jack. I started my work clock and began unloading at 3:15. At 5, Mr. Dime looks on in satisfaction to see me about 3/4 of the way through as he's out the door. At 5:15, Mr. Dime's replacement, Mr. Quarter of the day shift, comes running in with his face white as a sheet to see me taking off the 4th to last pallet. "Please tell me that I'm reading this wrong," he pled fruitlessly. I wish I could. I lied, knowing Mr. Dime was about to be up a muddy creek with a spoon. I even tried telling Mr. Dime what he was getting into, but he just skimmed and signed. He slumped. "Wait here, I need to call my district manager." "Better be quick. I want to be out of this lot by 6:30 to beat the morning rush and get a good breakfast." He ran back and I continued unloading. When I finally got the last pallet off at 5:50, I turned off my time clock as the district manager came in. We'll call him Mr. Dollar just to keep consistent, followed both by Mr. Quarter, who was looking somewhat relieved, and by Mr. Dime, who was somewhere between terrified and furious. "You're Mr. Arrow?" Mr. Dollar asked, holding a printout and looking to it for the name. "That's me," I agreed. "I take it they sent over the contract Mr. Dime signed?" "Yes, and that's just it. Mr. Dime is accusing you of forging his signature on this, since there's no way he'd sign off on a multi-$1,000 contract just to unload a trailer, especially since he claims you insisted on unloading it yourself." I whistled. "That's a heck of an accusation. Hey, is that CCTV I see up there in the corner over there?" I asked, knowing full well that the entire loading dock was covered by a slew of cameras. The one I pointed out was positioned just right to catch the whole conversation at the door. "Mr. Quarter, get the footage," Mr. Dollar said. "We don't have audio, but we do have visual on them." Mr. Dime lost his fury and now just looked petrified. The fallout. One review later, and I was grinning like a loon back to my truck. I called my manager, booked some home time, and walked away with enough money to last to the end of the month. The next time I went into that IB Nicoled, there was a new, much more sensible manager who always had a man on staff to unload the trucks. Edit to clarify a few things. 1. Yes, I milked it a bit, though not as much as some might think. Like I said, I was regularly there from 3 to 10:30 at the latest. Throw on top of that the fact that I've never been the healthiest of individuals, and it took me that long to keep from hurting myself. This was during the summer in SoCal, and even at night, it was still 90 degrees Fahrenheit outside, hotter in the trailer without any air conditioning. A big man with no AC is going to take all the time he wants. 2. Why didn't Mr. Dime do any of this himself, and why did he lie? Truckers tend to get the short end of the stick, even when we're regulars to a place. This was the 5th or 6th time I had been there, spread out over the course of 4 months or so. So I was familiar enough that I was recognized at the dock, but not so much that they really cared to keep track of it. The manager figured he could probably get away with doing me like this since he claimed I didn't like how long I was waiting. I feel like he's made other truckers get to that point, but none of them had hourly rates like mine on their contract. He's just one of many that thought he could get away with blaming it on that trucker when it went wrong for him. 3. What happened while we watched the video was pretty anticlimactic. The recording was on Mr. Quarter's phone when he came back and was pretty low quality, but you could still make out that I argued with him about unloading for a minute before coming back, and he did indeed sign it. Mr. Dollar said, "You can go, Arrow. Mr. Dime, go wait in the office, now." I got going while the going was good. Stop messaging me and have your lawyer contact me. I'm a very systematic and organized person. I reached out to my new apartments a month before move-in to confirm it was ready. Property manager, jerk number 1, informed me the fridge is leaking and will be replaced 2 weeks before move-in. I move in and fridge doesn't work. I submit a maintenance request and they send 2 goons who spend 4 hours on the phone with the boss and turn it off for 2 days, then turn it back on. It still doesn't work, so I file another request. This time she ignores me. I call, text, email, no answer. I call in the main management company line, and that other jerk adds the property manager, jerk number 1, to the line. Jerk number 2 cuts me off and doesn't let me finish, then hangs up. Jerk number 1 then sends me a long text that I'm rude and ungrateful, and that she will take action and make me regret it if I keep calling. I told her I could just buy from Costco and deduct rent, allowed in my state given the time frame, and it's been literally over 45 days since they've known the fridge is broken. She also says I will have to accept a used fridge from a broken down nearby unit that I will have to clean myself. I tell her I will be contacting a lawyer. Anyone attending my university qualifies for a free lawyer paid via tuition. She's like, "Stop messaging me. I will block you and have your lawyer contact me." I file a complaint with the city and they immediately call me to schedule an inspection 3 hours later. They say they've had multiple complaints with this property. Inspector comes, jerk number 1, the main groundsman, great guy, and the owner, also good guy, but was left in the dark about everything, all come to see what's going on and they look scared. Inspector writes up so many little things and I help point out very minor things that need repair and replacement. 30 minutes later, I immediately get a text from jerk number 1 that I will be expecting a brand new fridge in the morning. I get a new fridge. Now everyone knows what a fool she is. The groundsman also called her a few words. She ducks her head and avoids me whenever she sees me in the leasing office, beautiful quiet area where I study. I've also officially requested repair of all the little minor things that they have to complete within 30 days. One of them involves putting doors on these beautiful exposed cabinets they have, which will destroy the cabinets and likely need to be replaced when I move out, so minimum $3,000 there. Had she literally given me a time frame and listened to me calmly explain my struggles living without a fridge for weeks, this could have been solved within 30 minutes. I was ready to accept the used fridge from a nearby unit. Had she said, "There is a beautiful fridge in our luxury unit. I will send 2 guys over to clean it like new, and it will be swapped with yours in 2 hours," I would have been like, "Oh yeah, thank you." This would have cost them $0. They own the fridge already, and the maintenance crew is always sitting outside smoking anyways and getting paid. Instead, they had to purchase me a more expensive fridge that doesn't match the other units, probably the only one in stock at the time, and now they also have to complete other minor repairs that I might have not cared about. I would estimate this ordeal will now cost them over $6,000. I haven't even made contact with a lawyer yet. This is how fast they pounced as soon as the inspector came. I've also reported the property manager and the company to several state agencies. Even if nothing comes out of it, they will be annoyed. Have you ever lived in a horrible apartment? If so, what was wrong with it? Please let us know. Reddit boy and I once lived in an apartment where we had raccoons in the walls. You would hear them moving about all hours of the day and night. You could put your hand on the wall and feel their warmth on the other side. I'm so glad we don't live there anymore. Am I the jerk for asking my parents why my wedding gift was significantly smaller than my sister's? My husband and I, we're both 28, got married recently, and my sister, who's 31, and I were discussing the wedding after returning from the honeymoon. We are very fortunate to have grown up in a household where my parents made very good money. They were generous with us, but raised my sister and I to be hardworking and not dependent on them as adults. My sister and I both do well financially, as does her husband, who's 36. My husband loves his job, but it's not one that has a ton of earning potential. He and I met in college, so I've always known this was his plan, and we are very happy with our setup. During my discussion with my sister, she asked me if my husband and I were planning to use the wedding gift money from my parents to do a particular renovation for which we've been saving. But I was very confused because the gift, while extremely generous and appreciated, wasn't nearly enough to cover that. She told me how much she had been gifted, and it was more than twice what we had been given. After that, I couldn't stop thinking about why I had gotten less. So my sister encouraged me to ask, and during a call with my mom, I couldn't stop myself from asking. Her response was that it wasn't my business, but since I did ask, my sister has chosen a partner that can accommodate the lifestyle she's used to, so they've gifted her accordingly. They also gifted me according to the lifestyle that I've chosen. We are not entitled to gifts of any size in life, but I still can't help feeling hurt that my parents feel that my husband and I are less deserving than my sister and her husband based on income. Meanwhile, my parents are angry at both my sister and me for having this discussion and bringing it to them. Not the jerk. There's a lot of reasons that would have made sense and been okay, including a simple, we're not in the same financial situation we were in when we gave your sister her wedding gift. But to make it about how much you guys make is basically a passive-aggressive way of saying you got less because you picked a partner we feel is beneath you. And if it was income-based, wouldn't it make more sense for the lesser income kid to get more? Makes no sense, but definitely not the jerk. Wonder if older sister has always been the favorite one. Not the jerk. And I don't understand your parents' reasoning. Seems like they just want to punish you for choosing a spouse that makes less money than they would have preferred. Honestly, if your sister's husband is so well off, why would she need additional money as a gift? What weird logic. Your brother-in-law makes more, so we gift them more? Your husband makes less, so we gift you less? Sounds backwards. Also, sounds like they're punishing you for choosing who you married. You're the jerk. What's so hard to understand here? Your parents approve of your sister's husband, so they rewarded her accordingly upon her wedding. They do not approve of your husband and are disappointed in you for settling on him, so they've not rewarded you. Which, given the circumstances, I can't say that I blame them. Both of my daughters married wealthy men, so I know they will have good lives. If one of my daughters had married some guy who was barely making it, I can't tell you how disappointed I would have been in her. You met in college? Sorry, but that's definitely not the place to be meeting husband material. College is for learning and fun experiences. It's after college in the real world where you will find valuable men who are successful and ready to start a family. These are things your parents really should have taught you. We don't reward our kids when they disappoint us. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her parents? Please let us know. I'll never understand how some people can be so mean. Am I the jerk for scaring someone that entered my apartment? I work in housing and residence life at a major university. One of the benefits of my job is an apartment on campus. My apartment is external, but attached to one of the buildings I oversee, and right next to one of the doors to the building. However, the entrance to the building is a clear glass door, and my apartment door looks like a door to any other of the residents' room doors, or it could be mistaken for a supply closet, but definitely not an entrance, and definitely not something that a random person should be entering. I would sometimes leave my door unlocked if I was in my living room, but after student staff accidentally entered my room during room walks, I started locking it 24/7. However, earlier this week, I had just gotten back from taking out the trash and was about to take out recycling when a student entered my apartment. I sternly yelled, "What are you doing? Get out!" The student left the door open and left. I went to go close the door and see if the student was still there, as I wanted to get his name, because entering a room unauthorized is a conduct violation. However, the student had booked it. Today, I had a father call me about an incident. It turns out it was that student's father. The father went on about how his son was now scared after he accidentally walked into someone's room and some man yelled at him and chased him. I explained that his son had entered a staff member's apartment and that we had been searching for the culprit, and now that we have identified his son would be going through the conduct process since he violated a policy. The father was not happy and told me what I did was unacceptable. He asked for my supervisor's contact information and told me he would get me fired. I know I won't be fired for this, nor will I be getting in any trouble. But am I the jerk? Edit to address some comments here. 1. My apartment is labeled with a room number. I've been told not to draw attention to the fact that it is a staff apartment, as students might come to the door to ask questions they should be going to the office for. Also, students have been known to harass and vandalize staff doors if they know it's a staff apartment. 2. Any side doors or staircases are labeled as such. 3. I thought I had made this edit previously, but chase was a strong word. I literally just went outside to see if the student was still there to reprimand him, but he had darted. 4. We live in a major city, and our campus has a lot of transient problems. I had no way of knowing this person was a student in the moment. 5. I'm confused at what information that the people commenting, "It was an accident," have that I don't. How do you know it was an accident? I don't even know that yet, as it still is being investigated. 6. The conduct process is policy. Anyone that breaks any of the housing policies is subject to it. He broke a housing policy. I'm not the one who decides his fate. If the entry was accidental and you know it was unintentional, then causing trouble for an innocent means yes, you are the jerk. Make life simple. Get a sign on the door about it being an apartment. Agreed. This happened to me in college. She apologized, we laughed, and she went on her way. It was an accident. I also know many people who have accidentally entered the wrong room before. Human error. Yeah, but they didn't run off. They actually stayed to apologize. And if there had been a history of people entering my room and also of students deliberately vandalizing other staff accommodations, then someone trying to get into my room and then running off when I yelled from a distance so I could be heard, I would be pretty upset. Not the jerk. Everyone sucks here. So a random student randomly walks into an unlocked door, perhaps thinking it is a side door into your dorm. You really need to calm down. This is a serious power trip. It was an accident. Accidents like this do actually happen. You're going to try to ruin some college kid's life because what? You're bored? You're the jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the father? Please let us know. It sounds to me like it was an accident. Then again, I know next to nothing about college. Customer wants to call us every hour until her issue is fixed? Sure. So I work at a pretty big tech company as a help desk agent, and as any help desk employee, I've had my fair share of crazy customers, like this one, who we shall call Karen. We would mainly answer the phones and emails and then log in tickets to our system for handling all the issues customers would require us to solve. Each logged ticket will cause the customer to be billed the standard help desk fee, and then it would add up depending on how long it takes, parts needed, etc. Onto the story. So one morning, Karen calls in and asks about a ticket she had logged like 2 hours ago. I go and check the status and see it was a pretty standard account request for one of her employees, and it was already being handled by the team that creates these particular accounts. This account was for an outside system for which we only provide the accounts, and they have their own support for problems. Due to synchronization, after we create the account, it takes roughly 24 hours for it to be functional, and this is quite well known for the managers who usually request them to be created. I inform Karen that the account is being created right now and she should be getting a confirmation about it soon. I also remind her that it can take about 24 hours for it to be functional. As soon as I said these things, her tone changed immediately, and she informed me, quite annoyingly, that this was very urgent and it should be functional faster. We talked for a little while longer, and I explained to her why exactly it takes this long, and finally she seems to understand and we end the call. About an hour later, one of my colleagues sends me a message asking me if I've talked to this lady before, and tells me she's calling again, angry and demanding that the account should be made faster. Once again, they explain the same things I did and they end the call. About an hour later, I answered a call and it's Karen again, even angrier and practically yelling that the account needs to be created now. I check the ticket again and see it has been completed, so the account should be working tomorrow. I tell this to Karen and she's not happy. She starts to yell all sorts of things and says that this is not how we should do things. And again, I inform her that the system she needs the account for is not ours, and this is something we can't do anything about. But she won't have it. She then calmly informs me that if this is how we do things, then she will be calling us every hour to waste our time until the account is done. I can almost hear the smirk on her face as she says this. Now, even though she was being extremely rude, I didn't want to be a jerk, and I tried to inform her that every time she calls, we are required to log in a ticket, and her company will be charged the standard help desk fee. But as I try to tell this, she just cuts me off and refuses to listen. So at this point I say, "All right, call us if you want." So then she proceeds to call us every hour for the rest of her workday and the next morning. I get a few of her calls and just always repeat the same thing. Account will be working within 24 hours. And each time she calls me or one of my colleagues, we log in a ticket and move on. Eventually the call stopped, presumably because the account was finally functional and we didn't hear from her again. I haven't heard if she got into any trouble for it, but she must have generated quite a bill for her company over nothing. Am I the jerk for being mad at my husband for stranding me at the airport for an hour so he could finish his baseball game? So my sister has a newborn and was really struggling with sleeplessness and postpartum. We live in the next state, but I didn't hesitate to cancel all my week's plans and appointments and book tickets to go help for 3 nights. While there, I cooked and cleaned by day and fed the baby at night and overnight. After 3 days, I was pretty spent and sleep-deprived myself. I came home on an evening flight that arrived at 8 p.m. The flight was super bumpy and I am anxious, so that added to my nerves being fried. Well, my husband was supposed to pick me up, but he had a baseball game, casual beer league, 2 miles from the airport that evening. When I landed, there was 1 inning left in the game. I figured he'd leave early to come grab me, but no, he insisted on finishing the game and told me to sit tight. I looked into an Uber home, but it would cost $200. So I sat in the airport in tears because I was so exhausted and hurt. He showed up about an hour later. Edit to add, we booked these tickets together, both not realizing he had a game when he did. Once he realized, we pre-arranged for him to leave early and pick me up. He changed his mind sometime between when I was away and when I landed. He also told me not to spend the money when I texted him about Uber costs to home and to the game. Both were exorbitant because of the late hour. When I laid into him, he got super defensive and told me this game was close and important to him, and it should be no big deal for me to sit around and wait a while. I told him I felt like I had just been super supportive of someone for 3 days and was tired and needed some support myself, and was hurt that he'd choose 1 inning of baseball over my comfort and needs. His response? I wouldn't have cared if it were me. Who's the jerk here? Am I totally overreacting, or am I being gaslit? Edit. Because so many people are asking, the airport I was in is a tiny municipal airport with no services outside the gates. It pretty much shuts down around 8 p.m. and it's in the middle of nowhere, with town being 2 miles away. Walking was not an option. Update. Not sure if this is a thing here, but I thought I'd update. Husband came to me and said he realized he made a huge mistake and put himself first. His apology was super sincere. We also discussed how we could have planned better so that nobody has to lose. In fact, the next game interferes with dropping our kid at sleepaway camp, so we've made a solid plan for that. In hindsight, I should have just driven myself up there and left the car, or arranged for a friend to grab me. He acknowledges that he left me in a bad spot by telling me not to Uber home or to the game, but to just wait. Thanks for all the feedback, even the ones that called me the jerk. It gave me lots to consider, hearing the other side of it. My husband and I have been very happily married for 21 years, high school sweethearts. We have 2 kids who are 19 and 12. Being together this long means some bad habits set in. We work hard at our marriage, but sometimes things blow up. This was my very first time using Reddit and attempting to get a totally anonymous and neutral perspective. Not sure I'll do it again, but it's been entertaining. Not the jerk. I'd only be okay if he was playing in the World Series. A regular ball game? He can leave early like he planned. Not the jerk. Next time, take that $200 Uber and make sure he pays for it. You're the jerk. Baseball games don't get scheduled last minute. You probably knew about it prior to booking your trip. Why do you expect your husband to cancel all of his plans for your benefits? You're more upset because you had to wait a whole hour. How terrible. Given that the Uber home would have been $200, I'm guessing him having to pick you up from the airport would take more than an hour out of his day. Get over yourself. I feel like you're being dramatic and playing the martyr a bit, but that's just me. You had to start by saying all the things you did, clearing your schedule, cooked, cleaned, etc. I understand that you were tired, but did it really hurt you to wait an hour while he was finishing up something that was important to him? He took care of things at home while you were gone for 3 days. Just a different point of view and food for thought. Finally, can't believe I had to scroll so much to find this. OP went to a different state and she did not have a plan to get home other than inconveniencing her husband. What is the rationale here? She supports her sister, husband supports her, and forget the husband? 1 hour is nothing. Wait patiently while someone is doing you a favor or find your own way home. Instead, she cried like a kid. Honestly, you're the jerk, mainly because you booked a flight and expected a ride without checking his availability. Yes, you were busy helping and caring for your sister, but that doesn't mean he has to drop everything. I am a woman, married to a man, and I could care less about sports. But obviously, this game was important to your husband. I could see if he left you stranded for hours, but 1 hour? Seriously? Just stream a show and chill out. Did he message you that it would be a bit? If he didn't, I would maybe be a little bit annoyed about that, but in the scheme of life and marriage, what's the point in getting upset about little inconveniences? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Karen keeps sneaking in my room, so I set up cameras. For a little backstory, I live with one roommate who used to be a friend. Prior to moving in together, we came up with a roommate agreement together. Within about a week of moving in, she was no longer sticking to the agreement. Within the first few months, she made comments that suggested she was going into my bedroom when I wasn't at home and when I was sleeping. My dog also started acting strange after we moved in. He has always been crated in my room when I am not home, and after moving in, he became scared to come out of his crate and scared to go into the backyard. I hadn't changed anything with him and was worried about what was going on when I wasn't home. After all this, I set up a camera in my bedroom. It is only active when I'm not home or when I'm sleeping, and it only records when there is motion detected. My bedroom is at the end of a short hallway. At the entrance to the hallway, I have blackout curtains set up to allow me privacy going from the bedroom to my private bathroom. My room and bathroom are the only rooms beyond this curtain, so there is no reason for her to be in this area of the home and no reason for the camera to be activated by anything other than my pets. Recently, I posted a video it had captured of my dog while he was being cute. My roommate saw it and became enraged that it is recording audio. I explained to her that it doesn't record anything unless motion is detected, and that if she's not going into my room, she has nothing to worry about. She accused me of trying to record her private conversations. I have no interest in her conversations, just maintaining my privacy in my own room, and more importantly, my dog's safety. Am I the jerk for refusing to take the camera down? Karen mother-in-law demands I stop playing video games. I, 27 female, and my husband, 26 male, are big gaming addicts. Our parents hate that we played video games, and we've gotten in multiple fights as kids and as adults over our hobby. It's a sore subject in our family, and we've opted to lie and say we are outside if anyone asks what we're doing. We both work from home, and right after, we proceed to play video games until midnight. None of us like leaving the house, so we're practically next to each other 95% of the time. There is no humanly possible way for either of us to cheat on one another. I'm currently pregnant, and this has caused our in-laws to visit very frequently. Due to this increase in visits, we've reduced much of our gaming time for the better health of the baby, and so they don't see us gaming. We've gotten in arguments about how our hobbies are unacceptable, childish, and that we needed to change. Sundays are known to everyone as the unavailable day. We always say we are on a date or something, but in reality, we're at home getting our weekly gaming quota covered. My husband went to a gaming cafe with friends visiting, and I stayed home last Sunday. Mother-in-law decided later to call me in the middle of a match, and I suppose I was acting very suspicious because I wanted to end the conversation ASAP. She asked what I was doing, and I replied automatically without thinking that I was on a date with my husband. According to my husband, she then later called him, and he said that he was at a bar with friends. Mother-in-law decided to visit my house, where I was, undoubtedly, in the middle of another game. I avoided any phone calls and pretended to not hear the knocking until my match was over, 20 minutes or so. Afterwards, I answered the door and pretended that I was sleeping, which is why I wasn't answering the phone or door. Mother-in-law exploded on me, calling me a cheater, and said that the child I was pregnant with was not her son's, because otherwise, why would I not answer the door? The idea that I would cheat, and that it would even be possible to cheat on my partner, was so hilarious to me that I burst out laughing, which angered mother-in-law even more. She continued to berate me while I just smiled, sitting there, thinking how ridiculous all this was. When my husband came home, she berated me in front of him about how I was cheating on him. My husband was visibly confused the whole time and confirmed with his mother that there was no possible way for me to cheat on him. He explained how we are together practically every moment of the day, and when mother-in-law saw he was not getting on her side, she proceeded to get mad at me for leading her on. She called me a jerk for pretending to have an affair and never correcting her before she told other people. Although I never clarified that I wasn't cheating, I do think that it was not her place to come unannounced and proclaim that I'm a cheater. Am I the jerk? Stop letting this jerk through your front door. Not the jerk, of course. Not the jerk, and your mother-in-law sounds toxic. Your gaming is your business. You both need to tell your parents that it's not their business and to keep their opinions on your gaming to themselves and enforce it. If they start bothering you about it on the phone, hang up. If they start when you're at their house, leave. If at your house, tell them to leave. You are adults. Info. You do realize there is no law that says you have to ever speak to this dreadful person ever again, right? You're the jerk. His mother loves her son and realizes that he's wasting his life away rotting in front of a TV screen. I imagine she resents you because instead of helping him become anything that a man should be, you're encouraging him to continue being a man-child who spends an unhealthy amount of time playing video games. As parents, we want to see our kids become something in the world. It sounds like he's a major disappointment to her, and you are a part of that disappointment. What is your kid supposed to think as they grow up to see you two playing video games all day? I know everyone here is telling you that you're in the right and mother-in-law is a monster, but I honestly feel sorry for her and hope she goes no contact with you. Speaking of video games, do you ever play video games? And if so, which ones? Please let us know. If you play Fortnite, there's a good chance I've taken you out before. Am I the jerk for making my daughter share presents with my stepdaughter? I, 40 female, was a single mother to my daughter, Amy, who's 15. I married my wife, Jenna, 42, last year. She has a daughter, Nora, who's 13. We all live together as I have full custody of my daughter. It was kind of hard for the kids to adjust, but they got along well. The girls have their birthdays very close, only 2 days apart, so we decided to have a joint birthday party for both of them. Since Nora had a hard time making new friends, they moved in with us, and she's very shy. Most of my family lives out of the country, so the gifts were sent a week early. It was a huge bag with at least 20 gifts. The party was nice, and we opened the bag at night once everyone left. Jenna handed out the presents as she took them out. After 12 gifts in a row just for Amy, I checked the bag and froze to see that there was only one gift for Nora from my parents. She pretended it wasn't a big deal, but as she opened the present, I saw her eyes drop. It was a $15 tumbler from Walmart. Not to sound ungrateful, but Amy's gifts were much more expensive. Lots of gift cards over $100, a new phone, limited edition Funkos, designer clothes, and lots of cards wishing her a happy birthday. Needless to say, I blew up the family chat, calling out my parents, siblings, and extended family who sent gifts for not considering Nora and my parents for the cheap gift. No one took me seriously since it's not our duty to give gifts to someone else's kid, and Amy deserved them since I didn't even throw her own birthday party, emphasizing that Jenna and Nora are my problem and not theirs. Nora was clearly hurt, since it's not the first time my family has left her out. At night, I asked Amy to share some of the gifts with her stepsister. Not all of them, just a couple of gift cards and some of the new clothes. Amy refused. This surprised me, since she never had a problem with sharing, and even though she and Nora are not BFFs, they usually get along. After asking why, Amy started crying, saying that she never wanted a joint birthday party, and that I force her to share everything with Nora. They share a room for space, and I make sure they're both invited to the same parties and sleepovers so that Nora won't be left out. If they don't invite both of them, then neither of them goes. Amy stated that she at least wanted her own gifts to be hers alone. I scolded her for being selfish with her stepsister, grounded her, and took a couple of the presents to give to Nora. She turned them down because she didn't want problems with Amy and it felt like pity. Since then, Amy has been cold to all of us. I just wanted my two girls to be closer with a joint party and have the same things. Am I the jerk? Clarification. Jenna and I bought gifts for the girls, their own tablets, as well as their friends. Nora also received gifts from her extended family, but they sent for Amy as well. You're the jerk. You're basically asking your daughter to share her complete identity with Nora. Her room, her stuff, her family, her friends, her birthday party, the parties she goes to, and sleepovers. Is there anything that's really hers? This can't be good for her development. She needs to be her own person. Yes, and Nora needs that too. How will she ever be able to be her own person and build her own relationships if everything in her life is based on a stepsister who barely seems to like her? To be fair, the girls might genuinely get along with each other, considering that they're close in age and are going through the same situation of having to adapt to the new reality. At some level, I do think they understand each other. Nora had to leave behind her own life, room, and friends. Amy is also aware of this, and now she's watching her stepsister being forced to make similar sacrifices. Amy isn't allowed to have her own friends? You seriously don't let her socialize unless her sister is with her? Not to mention, maybe Nora doesn't want Amy there when she hangs out with her friends. Sounds like Amy has nothing to herself, and she can't even go out with her friends on her own. Do you see Amy's struggles at all? Or are you so focused on the pretty picture in your mind and being Nora's hero that you don't see all the changes your own daughter is going through? You have compassion for Nora, and that's wonderful, but you are sacrificing your own daughter's happiness for Nora's. Just because Amy doesn't complain doesn't mean she isn't struggling and hurting. Yes, your parents are jerks. That was a horrible thing to do. But maybe they did her a favor if it wakes you up to just how awful you are being to your daughter. I'm wondering if she's complained to them, or they just see how she's treated now. But you tried to fix it, and you totally did it the wrong way. You punished Amy for your family's awful behavior. Listen to what Amy is telling you. She's been polite long enough. You are not bringing them closer. You are driving them apart. You're the jerk. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for how she tried to handle this, or not? Let us know right now. You can't force your kids to share everything. It never turns out good. Restaurant owner demands I lie to customers about the wait time. I worked at a Mexican restaurant as a hostess during lockdown. Since it was the middle of lockdown, we were at 50% capacity, meaning that every other table in the restaurant had to be empty. On the weekends, it got really busy. We usually had like a 30-minute or more wait time for a table, especially for especially for parties of 5+ people. Customers didn't mind waiting, and we often had a long line of people. We never had an empty table. So on a busy Friday, the owner comes in and is shifting through papers at the hostess stand, where I am. A customer calls and asks me how long the wait will be for a group of 6. I tell them about 30 minutes. The owner hears this and gets super angry with me. He tells me I need to tell the customer in line 5 minutes and basically add 5 minutes for each additional party that is waiting. I should never tell them 30 minutes because they won't want to wait. He tells me if I need to, go above 50% capacity, and the owner tells me he's writing me up to the manager, who of course thought this was ridiculous. Cue malicious compliance. The owner is still here watching me talk to customers. We get really busy, and we have a giant line outside the door going down the whole block. It's groups of 6+ people, which of course are harder to seat. I tell the first party 5 minutes, the second 10 minutes, etc. It was chaos. All of the servers already had the max amount of tables they could have, 5 or 6, but I just keep sitting customers. The owner was watching me after all. Soon enough, the servers are all overwhelmed, having like 8 tables each. The kitchen is super behind, so people are complaining. I had several customers wanting to talk to the owner to complain. Finally, all the tables were filled. I keep telling customers, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I had a ton of angry customers complaining about not being 6 feet away from others. They all said they were going to report the restaurant. Then the owner wanted to go against lockdown protocol and let people inside without masks and got angry with me for sitting a party outside. I then quit on the spot and said, I'm going home. They didn't have a hostess for the rest of the night or for the weekend. I'm not sure what happened after that. Chaos, I'm sure. The last time I checked, they have a 2.5 stars on Yelp, and I like to read the bad reviews from time to time to entertain myself. Am I the jerk for insisting my niece is co-flower girl with my fiance's niece? My fiance and I are planning our wedding. She comes from a large family. She has 5 sisters, most of them have kids. 4 of her sisters are her bridesmaids, 1 is serving as maid of honor. I come from a smaller family, just my parents, my sister, and my niece, Bryn. Bryn is 3 years old and pretty much my best pal. I'm her godfather. I love her to bits. I didn't care when my fiance didn't choose my sister to be a bridesmaid, and likewise, my sister was cool with it. I did feel some sort of way because I have all 4 of my fiance's brother-in-laws in my wedding party, at fiance's request. But ultimately, it's her side of the party. She can do what she wants. Then it came time to pick the younger roles in the wedding. Her older nephews are junior groomsmen. The younger is the ring bearer. She only has 1 niece, Aubrey, who's 4. My fiance wants her to be the flower girl. I said that's fine, but I also want Bryn to be one. They can walk down the aisle together. It would be super cute. Bryn loves playing with Aubrey, so they get along. My fiance says she wants our wedding to be traditional, so there can only be 1 flower girl. I suggested Bryn could hold a sign or something while Aubrey threw flowers. My fiance said no, she can sit with my sister and parents. At this point, I insisted and said Bryn would be flower girl. I texted my sister and asked, she agreed. My fiance got upset, and I said it's my day too. Bryn means a great deal to me, and she'll be in the wedding. My fiance and Aubrey's mom are mad at me, saying I'm stealing Aubrey's spotlight. Am I the jerk? Info. Are you two getting premarital counseling to do a general inventory of how you two agree or disagree on other issues? Because I have a sense that if you two did get such counseling, there would be a lot more issues uncovered. Not the jerk, just an observation. Your fiance sees this as her wedding, not our wedding. Honestly, if it were me, and I'm maybe just way too petty, I would tell her that either Bryn is a co-flower girl or none of your fiance's brother-in-laws are groomsmen. Just replace them with friends or coworkers. But again, just an observation. If this is your fiance's reaction, good luck, buddy. Not the jerk, but do consider how this lack of willingness to compromise or even see reason will impact everything going forward. These are red flags for sure. Traditionally, it's very common to get premarital counseling. Consider it. Am I the jerk for refusing to be in my best friend's wedding because I'm not the maid of honor? I'm 27, female. My best friend, who's 25, female, of 10 years, is getting married. Some background. My friend lost her father and 2 older sisters 7 years ago in an accident. I was her shoulder to cry on. She became attached to me as a second sister and grew closer to her only living sibling, her brother. She doesn't talk much about her relationship, so I was surprised and excited when she showed us her engagement ring. Maybe it was presumptuous, but I thought I was going to be her maid of honor. She didn't bring it up after her engagement announcement, but I didn't think much of it at the time. Fast forward to yesterday, when our group of friends got together, and one brought up a conversation about the wedding. My best friend said that she was planning on formally inviting all of us to be in her wedding party. I asked her who was going to be her maid of honor, thinking it was going to be me, but she said she was going to choose her brother, who's 29, instead. I blew up. I told her it was ridiculous that she was going to choose her brother to be her man of honor. She looked confused and upset, reminding me of how much her brother means to her. I reminded her that I'm her best friend and that she's taking this opportunity from me. She started to cry and apologized, but said that her mind was made up and that her brother deserved that role. I was upset too and told her I wouldn't be attending her wedding and that I couldn't believe my best friend would betray me like that. Our friends think I'm being dramatic, but I'm really upset. Am I the jerk? Edit. I get that she's close to her brother and she's honoring her family, but it's kind of ridiculous to have a bunch of girls as bridesmaids and then a man as the man of honor. I'm heartbroken. Edit 2. For people commenting about walking down the aisle, I think she plans on having her mother walk her. You're the jerk and insanely dramatic and honestly preposterous. You're actually doing her a favor by not going to the wedding at this point. You're the jerk big time, and I think you need to take some time to sit back and reflect on what you said. Your best friend wants to include her only living relative in her wedding. This is the only way to properly do it. She deserves more. You're in her wedding as a bridesmaid, which should be an honor, but you're mad that she took away a title you gave yourself? Never assume. You know the saying. You're the jerk. I can't believe your atrocious behavior. Are you for real? If I were the bride-to-be, I'd drop you like a burning hot potato. You are so the jerk. Get over yourself. This isn't about you. It's her wedding. Edit. You said you're heartbroken in your first edit? You? Boo-hoo. What about her after what you said to her? Need to stay later to catch the night shift? No problem. A little background. I'm in human resources and I work for a manufacturing company. My hourly guys work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. June of 2020, I got a new manager. I knew she was going to be a problem because she didn't like doing what me, a generalist, and the coordinator did. Essentially, I did recruiting, onboarding, and the generalist did payroll. So a few months after she started, she began complaining about how I get there at 7 and leave at 4. She asked me to change my schedule to come in at 8, while the coordinator would continue to work 7 to 4. So I'm doing this for a couple of weeks, and she keeps trying to get me to stay later than 5, which in my mind, I take a 30-minute lunch, so you're already getting 8.5 hours out of me. After resisting for a while, she begins scheduling meetings for after 5, like 5:30 or 6 p.m. At this point, I'm irritated, but being passive-aggressive about it. I'd look at our calendars and propose a time where we would both be free before 5 p.m. This is how I knew she was just being a jerk. So she has a meeting with me and tells me that the night shift needs to see me more, to which I reply, well, you come in around 9:30 a.m. and stay till 7. What do they need me for? Here, she then admits it's because she doesn't know how to do some things, rather than admitting that she just flat out didn't want to learn. So I tell her I'm happy to teach her what she doesn't know, but just because I'm salaried doesn't mean I get to be worked like a dog with no extra compensation or time off, which was another thing she'd get mad about was me taking vacation time for Christmas. Turns out she was upset because it became very apparent when I wasn't around that she didn't know how to do her job. But I digress. So she says I have to start attending mandatory employee meetings and other events that routinely happen after 5 or 6 p.m. I get tired of arguing and agree. First time one of these events is coming, I change my schedule. If the event ends at 7 p.m., I'd come in at 10:30 so I wasn't working any extra hours. First few times, she thought I was just running late that day, but after a week or two of this happening, she realized it was intentional. Anyway, she gave up and a month later I got a promotion and was transferred to a new site. Within months of my leaving, she was put under a microscope as it became obvious to corporate that she didn't know how to do her job. I also got praised from the HR director who explained to someone new that my old boss only survived this long because the person who was doing all the work had left. She got fired. Am I the jerk for selling my engagement ring to get my deposit back and refusing to give my ex the difference? I'll try to keep things short. My ex-fiancé and I dated for 3 years and we were engaged for 7 months. He left me for his best friend because they both were in love and la. They wanted to try it out before running out of time. I'm bitter, yes, but it is what it is. There was no cheating or anything else. The thing is, we were getting ready to be together before the wedding and we decided to move to a bigger place so he could have his office at home. While we were dating, we lived together for a year, but then decided to move separately because we weren't able to find a place near both our jobs, and he had to drive 45 minutes to an hour while I only did 15 minutes. We found one 5 months ago, and I alone paid for the deposit with the understanding that we were supposed to get it back since we were going to move and eventually buy something for us. Since we didn't, I decided to stay where I already live since it's smaller, cheaper, and closer to my job, so I lost my deposit, around $1,700. With no other way to get my money back, I sold the engagement ring he bought me and got $7,500. I said, forget it, I will keep the rest for what he did. But 3 days after I sold it, he contacted me asking to meet so I could give him the ring and he could give me the deposit in full so I wouldn't lose any money. I said, no need, bro, I already sold it. And he got mad because the ring is worth more than the deposit. He's asking for the difference and I said no, because it's mine and I don't owe him crap, then hung up. I told my family about it and sister said it was kind of a crappy thing to do because I'm obviously taking advantage and being spiteful since I think he still owes me for breaking my heart, and that to be true, I haven't lost any money with this breakup because he compensated for anything we spent at the beginning and the only thing we left unclear was the deposit, which he was going to pay in full when we only needed to go halves, so I should give the extra money I got. Update. Well, my brother and I checked the laws, more like Googled it, and apparently it's right that I can be sued because the ring wasn't legally mine yet, and I might have messed up because I only got 7.5 while the ring might have been worth more. X is a trust fund kid. Anyway, I'll contact a lawyer Monday morning and I'll stop spending the money I did get. Not the jerk. He broke the engagement, you get to keep the ring. If you broke it, he gets it back. Legally speaking, not necessarily. In a lot of places in the US, an engagement ring is recognized as a conditional gift. The condition being it becomes the recipient's with marriage. Based off a quick Google, Montana is an unconditional gift. In 5 states, it matters who called off the wedding, and the rest it goes back to the giver. This isn't a legal advice sub, so let's look at it morally. If OP changed her mind about kids or cheated or some other relationship-shattering thing, should the ex be out for no longer wanting to get married? I'd say no. Why should it be different because the ex decided getting married would be wrong for a different reason? So morally, I'd say OP owes the leftover money back. I don't agree at all. They both made a promise to marry. She was in good faith keeping her promise. He was not. He broke the engagement, so she shouldn't be punished for it. He also shouldn't be punished for realizing he didn't want to marry her and actually loved someone else. OP said they didn't cheat and that it was amicable, sorted all of the financial aspects of the canceled wedding with her, and offered to give her the watch she gave him back. This sub is filled with ill marriage and betrayed spouses. I'm going to disagree with the first comments I read and say you're the jerk. I get it, you're mad, he broke it off, etc. You say he was going to pay the entire deposit and he just wanted the ring back. In my opinion, that's beyond fair. You're not out any money, and there's no price that can be put on relationships. It is what it is, as you said. I don't think that justifies making a profit out of the deal at his expense. He did the right thing in calling off the engagement when his heart wasn't in it. Yes, it hurts, but better before than after getting married. Well, what do you think? Should OP give her ex the money back that she got from selling the ring or not? Please let us know. Is it just me, or do weddings and engagements seem to stress a lot of people out? Am I the jerk for filing a police report over $300? My family is visiting and staying at my house. I keep a box with a few $100s in it in my room, just in case I need cash. My niece did a chore for me, so I went to my box so I could give her a small reward. However, when I went to get it, my box was empty. I panicked because I knew I hadn't taken anything out, let alone all $300. I asked my brother about it, and he got offended I would even imply that his family would steal from me. I told him to at least ask his kids about it, but he refused. I ended up asking them myself, and my 14-year-old nephew told me he had taken it. I asked for it back, but he said that he had taken it 2 days before and had already spent it. I told him to give me what he had bought then, but he refused. His dad blew up at me. I have no right to talk like that to his kid, and I told him to tell his kid to give me the other thing he bought or to pay me back, but he refused as well. I told him that I would bring this to the police, and he just laughed and said it was only $300 and it wasn't worth the trouble. I told him if it was only $300, then he could pay me back, but he said no. I did go to the police with it, and I gave them the information they needed, and it was actually surprisingly easy. My family lives in the same city as me, so the police came pretty fast, and now my entire family is furious at me for potentially ruining my nephew's life over such a small thing. I think it's the principle of it that matters, and everyone in my family is better off than me as well, but an outside opinion would be nice. Am I being a jerk for doing this? Also, if I do get paid back, should I drop the charges? Not the jerk. Your nephew is the jerk, and judging by his father's reaction, it's not hard to see where he gets it from. ETA. OP, in response to your edit regarding your question as to whether you should drop the charges if you get paid back, that's up to you. In your place, I would consider it only if your nephew and your brother offered sincere apologies, meaning that they both acknowledged that what they did was wrong and why. However, based on their vast sense of entitlement, I don't see that happening. Your nephew not only stole from you, but basically scoffed at you when you demanded your money back. He refused to give you the item that he used your money for. That's some level 12 sense of entitlement on a dial that only goes up to level 10. And as I said, it's not hard to see where he gets it from. His dad refused to punish his son and refused to make restitution. With this in mind, it looks to me like, based on the criteria I would use, you will not be dropping the charges. Your nephew feels that he's entitled to steal from you and is brazen enough to admit doing it. This is not a kid who feels remorse. Since he's apparently lacking in empathy, his best chance at becoming a decent human being is to show him that actions have consequences. Well, what would you have done in this situation? Would you have called the police on your nephew or not? Please let us know.
Absolutely. Nothing's worse than family members who steal from you.
Karen thinks she doesn't have to get a job because of her anxiety. Expects us to pay her way while she does nothing. My friends and I are all moving out of our parents' houses into an apartment September 8th. There are 4 of us. The apartment is about 2 hours away from where we currently live and is near our college. We all agreed to split the cost of rent. This was months ago. We are all 19 to 20, by the way. This is how irritating my friend is. She has really bad driving anxiety and doesn't have a job. She has been sitting at home all summer doing nothing. She applied for a job at the beginning of July to a place down the street from the apartment. Her mom drove her to that interview and back. They offered her a position and gave her all the paperwork to fill out and fax it to them. She did that. Orientation was scheduled for July 20th. She called and had the place reschedule it for August 7th because she couldn't find anyone to drive her there, and she said she felt sick. She never went to August orientation and pretty much ghosted the place, so that's out. That would have been perfect for her because all she would have had to do is walk down the sidewalk. It was literally about a 5 to 10 minute walk down the street. This isn't the first job that she's done this to either. It's always the driving anxiety excuse. She has her license and has drove on the freeway many times. The rest of us have jobs. The apartment has a pool and common areas that people hang out at. She thinks she's just going to lounge at the pool all day, meet cute guys, make new friends and all that. She's really excited to move in. That's what she told another roommate. I think she just doesn't want to work. But she needs to though, because that was a part of the deal. You cover your share of rent. If she can't pay for her share of the rent, then she can't stay with us. End of story. I thought the group was on board with that. I mean, she's had all summer to find a job, and she keeps ghosting the ones that want to hire her because she has to drive to them. Pretty soon, it's going to be time to move in, and it's like, if you think you're just going to sit in the apartment all day, taking online classes and then lounge by the pool, you are sadly mistaken. The rest of the group would love to do that, but we need money to survive. We told her she's gonna have to get over her driving anxiety and find a job, or figure out a way to get money. She got mad and started yelling at us, saying we don't understand, and it's not that easy to get a job. We have even tried to help her apply for jobs, and she screamed, "I don't need your help, I'll figure it out myself." I know her parents aren't willing to pay for her monthly rent, and boy, are they eager for her to move out, probably because she mouths off to them constantly. My one roommate thinks we should cover September's rent for her, and maybe she will find a job once she's in the area. I'm not too hopeful on that. I think if she isn't working somewhere by September 1st, then she can't move in. End of story. But that's just me. According to another roommate, I'm being too harsh and unsympathetic towards her. I should be willing to give her a chance to get a job before saying she can't live with us. What would you do in this situation? Would you let her move in with you or not? Please let us know.
If I were OP, I might reconsider moving in with this group of friends.
Karen gets me fired from a store I don't even work at. I used to work at a West Coast division store of Kroger. My family has several pets and farm animals, so I routinely shop at a local farm store. Most of the time I did this after my shift ended, which means I'm in my work uniform, black slacks, either a dark red polo shirt or a button-up gray shirt that have the store logos embroidered on them. The farm store personnel wear jeans, t-shirts, and gold-colored vests with the farm store logo. I was in the farm store looking at some electric fence supplies. This woman kept pestering me and asking me questions about some jeans she wanted to try on from the other side of the store. I politely pointed in the general direction of the clothing section. She stomped off. A couple minutes later, same woman is demanding I unlock the changing room for her. I'm rather irritated with her over-aggressive Karen attitude and snapped back. "No, now go away and leave me alone." Again, she stomps off. I pick up a few items and start towards the checkout when I get ambushed by this same woman who now has the store manager in tow. She's demanding I apologize to her. The manager just shakes his head, then asks, "Would you like to apologize to this customer?" "What for? She's rude, obnoxious, and irritating." No, I don't want to apologize.
She screams, "I've never been so humiliated in all my life. You need to fire him now."
The manager is still shaking his head in disbelief when he says, "Well, ma'am, I'm not going to be able to do that."
"And just why not?"
she demanded. The store manager is just standing there looking at her. I reply, "Obviously, she isn't smart enough to figure out I don't work here, so save us both some time and fire me. Then maybe she will shut up and go away." "You're fired," the manager barked, drawing even more attention from other customers in the store. I lean in closer to Karen and say, "Are you happy now, ma'am? That's the third time he's fired me this week. Have a nice day. Thanks for shopping, Smith's Food and Drug." I walked away as everyone listening started to laugh. The manager hollers at me as I'm walking towards the registers. "See you tomorrow?" "Yeah, I have to get hay and alfalfa." The woman threw down the jeans she was holding and ran out the doors. Am I the jerk for punishing my son by taking away his phone after he deleted my daughter's Minecraft world? I, 41 female, am married to my husband who's 42 male, and we have 2 kids. Our son, who's 11, we will call Zach, and daughter, who's 9, we will call Lizzie, not their real names. Lizzie loves the video game Minecraft, and she's played it nearly every day since we bought it for her on Xbox for her 8th birthday. She's a super artsy kid and loves to create extravagant buildings and structures in Minecraft, and she has shown me her amazing creations many times. 2 days ago, she was playing downstairs, and Zach asked if he could play with her. Lizzie didn't let him play, even though we have 2 Xbox controllers, and Zach was very angry for her not letting him play. I don't know why Lizzie didn't let him play. I was in the kitchen upstairs. Yesterday, when my husband and I were still sleeping, Lizzie started screaming and crying downstairs. She always wakes up early to play. Her world, with all of her creations, was gone, and she told us between sobs that she can't get it back, and she thinks that Zach deleted it last night. When Zach woke up, I asked him if he deleted Lizzie's world, and he started laughing and said that she should have let him play with her. I was livid. Lizzie loves that game so much, and her creations were beautiful, and now they're gone forever. Not to mention that she's devastated that the world she has spent over a year on is gone forever. I took my son's brand new phone away. We had just bought it for him this month for his birthday. My son is acting like this is the end of the world. He says he needs his phone because everybody else at school has one and he needs to fit in. He's starting middle school this week and claims he doesn't want to become a social outcast. I told him he can have his phone back in a month, and not having a phone won't make him an outcast, but he refuses and wants it now. My husband thinks that taking away his phone is going too far, and that Lizzie's game being gone isn't that big of a deal. But by that logic, isn't Zach's phone being gone not that big of a deal either? I don't know what to do. It's been over 24 hours and Zach won't talk to me, and Lizzie is still moody. So Reddit, can I get some advice? Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, and hold your ground. I'm a parent who is skeptical of video games, but Minecraft is different. What your son did is the equivalent of destroying a carefully created painting made over several months, and he laughs about it? Horrible. Or if she had a carefully crafted Lego world downstairs and came down to see it smashed. Not the jerk, and I do think Zach needs a harder lesson here. Lizzie needs her own private password. As a person who has carefully crafted Lego worlds, I concur. He should honestly be lucky that a phone takeaway was it. Not the jerk. You should keep his phone for as long as it takes your daughter to rebuild her world. Fair is fair. I would just add to it though, until it takes her to rebuild her world and he's also remorseful for what he did. Just being punished without having any remorse accomplishes nothing and just makes him feel like a victim. He needs to understand what he did was wrong, and until he sincerely is remorseful, he shouldn't get his phone back. OP's husband should spend a few hours with Lizzie and try to build a world himself. That would give him a taste of exactly what has been lost and the time and effort that was put into building her world. Well, what do you think? Should OP give her son his phone back or not? Please let us know.
Absolutely not. He needs to learn a lesson. This reminds me of when I was little and my brother and I would delete each other's Zelda Ocarina of Time files when we got in a fight.
Am I the jerk for paying for my daughter's college expenses, but not my son's? I can see both sides of the argument here, so I want some other advice. I have 2 kids, my daughter Lily and my son Jim. Jim graduated high school this year and Lily is in her 3rd year of college. For the past few months, I've gotten massive amounts of trouble from my ex-wife because I won't pay for Jim's college costs entirely like I currently do Lily's. Jim has not talked to me for over a month right now because of it. I feel like I'm 100% in the right because the situation with Jim is completely night and day compared to Lily. Lily graduated high school with a 4.0 GPA. She has always been incredibly gifted when it comes to academics. She got a full scholarship to a prestigious college, and I cover her housing, school supplies, and expenses. Even with this, she works as a student employee as a lab tech to make money. Jim graduated this year with a 2.1 GPA. We didn't think he was going to graduate at all at the beginning of the year. He's never put school as a priority, and for many months just stopped going entirely. I blame my ex for this, as she let him get away with it. I didn't even know he applied for college until he announced that he got into the lowest ranking college in the state. I was happy for him, but the tuition for this college is insane. His mother and he assumed I would cover the tuition cost and living expenses like I do for Lily. I told him there's no way I would do that. His tuition alone for a single semester is more than I give Lily in a year, and with his past record of school, I would not be shelling the money out. I told him if he wants to go to a community college to get his generals out of the way, I would pay for that, but there is no way I'm supporting him, especially because I do not trust he would actually apply himself. Jim and his mother have made my life horrible since then. They've told me I'm playing favorites and making sure Jim has no chance to start his life off. I could theoretically afford the tuition, but there's no way I'm comfortable making the sacrifices to do so just to see if he likes college enough to pull C's like he did in high school. My family agrees with me, and Lily herself told me she does not think I should support Jim because her support in no way even compares to what financial support Jim would need. Jim has gone no contact with me, and my ex blows my phone up every few days telling me that I've crushed his hopes and dreams and that I can still make it right. I don't feel like I'm in the wrong here, and there's no way I'm going to give him the money, but I need to know if I'm in the wrong with my thinking. Edit. Clarification time. 1. I do not pay Lily's tuition. She has a full scholarship. I give her maybe $11,000 a year as she works part-time as well and lives in relatively cheap housing. 2. Jim's tuition for an entire year would be $32,000. This would include another $11,000 to $12,000 for housing and other things, assuming he gets a job, which he said he didn't want to. 3. I'm willing to pay for community college or trade school and help him out if needed. This would be a fraction of the cost of college and allow him to prove to me he actually plans to try. If he got an associate's with good grades, then college financial support would be on the table. But considering he barely passed high school due to not applying himself, I doubt it. I'm willing to give him the exact amount of support I give Lily, but it won't be enough to get him to college. His mother cannot afford to help him, and I doubt he will want to work for it. Not the jerk. There are 2 reasonable compromises, and you've already offered one, paying for community college for a couple of years. The other one is paying the same amount as what Lily gets, which won't cover everything, and Jim or his mom can decide how to fund the rest. OP. Him not wanting to do community college is what really set me down the path of not wanting to pay. I don't pay for Lily's tuition, and I don't want to pay $16,000 a semester alone for Jim's right now. I was willing to do community college for now to at least see if he would apply himself, but with how everything is playing out, my guess is that won't work out either. I've always believed when it comes to money, your choice, so for that reason alone, not the jerk. Additionally, as someone who has the means to pay for the tuition, you probably know where your money is best invested, with education undeniably being a form of investment. Despite this take, however, I strongly advise that you have an open and civilized discussion with Jim about his options and find out what he actually wants from life. Sounds like he's missing direction, which is why he's been failing, whilst Lily knows what she wants. Jim deserves support to succeed, and that support might not mean expensive tuition, but something completely different. Best of luck. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for not wanting to pay his son's tuition or not? Please let us know.
Not at all. I wouldn't want to flush my money down the toilet either.
Oblivious customer thinks I'm rude. At my job at a big chain store, there's this work area where customers need to wait for us to get their stuff or do checkups of some of the more technical products. What often happens is that many customers tend to stand right in front of the entrance to this area while they wait, even though there's tons of room for them to stand. So we regularly have to ask people to move in order for us to, be able to do our jobs. Now, this one family, a woman, her husband, and their 3 kids, were waiting for a colleague of mine to get their products, completely blocking the way. I needed to pass to get something for someone else and politely ask them to move. A minute later, I need to walk back out, and there they are again, cutting off my path. So once again, I have to ask them to move, this time adding they can wait a bit further. 2 minutes later, you guessed it, the whole family casually standing there, blocking the whole entrance. This time I tell them we regularly need to pass through here and that I'd appreciate it if you could stand a bit further. Then the woman, clearly annoyed, says,
You know, you really should be more polite to customers.
"How so?" I ask.
I just think you're impolite, talking to us like that.
"I'm not sure I understand, ma'am. How was what I said impolite?"
It's not what you said, it's the way you said it.
"Well, ma'am, I apologize if I appeared impolite. In my defense, I had to ask you to move 3 times, so yes, perhaps you detected a little frustration on my part. I'm sure if you have to tell your kids the same thing 3 times, you get a little frustrated as well." She didn't immediately know how to respond to that, and I looked at her husband, who wisely said nothing. Then I extremely politely told her I had another customer waiting and that I needed to pass. The woman, however, decided she wasn't done with me yet.
I find it extremely rude of you to bring my kids into this. This is very unprofessional of you.
I just stared at her, as if to say, "Seriously?"
As a customer, she went on, I deserve to be treated with respect.
And as a human, I deserve better than to be called rude by someone who clearly doesn't respect me or my job.
You can't talk to me like that. I want to speak with your manager.
No, you don't. He'll back me up and tell you to treat me with respect or leave. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm not going to argue with you anymore. I have a job to do, and you're preventing me from doing it. I left, and when I returned a few minutes later, they were gone. The manager part was a bluff, though. He's new, and I have no clue how he'd handle it. Everything is locked in the display case. I used to work for a national office supply store 15 years ago in the technology department for the afternoon shift. The way it worked was that the guy working mornings usually received the freight and would sort what could be placed directly on the shelf and what stuff needed to go into locked areas, along with separating tech stuff from other office stuff. USB thumb drives at the time were like brand new, and I remember a 1 gigabyte costing like $100, so stuff like that gets put in the locked display case. Usually by the time I got there, he was more than halfway done placing inventory where it needed to go. The first stuff to get put away was expensive items that needed to get locked up so a customer with sticky fingers wouldn't walk off with it. Anywho, morning guy quit and the store manager told me I was now responsible for his job and my job. I really gave it a go for about a week, hoping the manager would either hop in and help or they would have a replacement soon enough. Needless to say, it was total chaos and an impossible job. When we would leave at night, stuff just kept on accumulating from the previous days along with empty shelves. Then I got told that they hadn't even posted a job announcement and that they were not hiring a replacement. It was just me. Not okay. To make things worse, the manager has scolded me that there's stuff in boxes I haven't even had time to open that's out on the floor and the cart I used to transport that should have been locked away hours ago because somehow I'm a superhero and can do this even faster than when 2 employees are doing the job. Cue malicious compliance. I don't have time to sort out what needs to go where, so I open up the glass display case and just start chucking stuff in. Number 2 mechanical pencils? Yup, right next to those $100 thumb drives. Post-it notes? Yup, right next to that $1,000 Canon Rebel digital camera. Whiteout naturally goes on top of the boxes for those expensive laptops in the case. I filled the display case to the brim and was only barely able to get the doors to slide closed and locked. Then I go on break. Manager has now noticed this problem and is lava level mad. I tell him everything is locked up, just like he asked. And I tell him that unless he plans on hiring another employee, I wouldn't be working there anymore. He had another guy hired in 2 days. Funny how managers' attitude changes when they have to start doing the work. Am I the jerk for calling out my adoptive parents for not helping me with college tuition when they did help their biological kids? I'm 17 and the youngest in the family. I was adopted at the age of 4. My biological mom was best friends with my adoptive mom, and she adopted me after my biological mom passed. Any reference to parents below refers to my adoptive parents. I have 3 older siblings. My parents covered their college tuition in full, and then covered law and medical school for 2 of them as well. The other sibling didn't go to grad school. They also gave them a stipend to cover living expenses. I talked to my parents about college and what help I can expect, and surprisingly, they told me there won't be any help because they don't have any money left over after they had paid for my siblings. I wasn't expecting a similar level of support, but I was expecting some kind of help. My mom told me that my biological mom didn't leave money for my college, so I'll be on my own. So I asked if this is really about money or if this is about me being adopted and not their real son. They were offended, but reassured me that they genuinely can't afford it after they've purchased a condo for my sister earlier this year, and it takes a few years for their finances to recover. So it's just my bad luck that this has coincided with me going to college, and there's nothing they can do right now. I called them out and told them that I'm not buying this explanation at all, and they wouldn't be doing this to me if I were their biological kid. My dad reminded me that I'm acting in an entitled way and should instead learn that we don't always get what we want. He told me that most parents can't fund their kids' college tuition, and I'm acting like I'm entitled to a tuition-free college when I'm not. But my point has been about me being treated unfairly compared to my siblings. In the end, they told me that they don't really need my permission or approval to support any of their kids, and I just need to accept that this is their decision. I said in that case, they also need to accept that I believe I'm being treated differently because I'm adopted, and their answers have not been convincing. They told me I'm being an entitled brat. Now I fear that I may have overstepped, and indeed, maybe I am being a jerk. Not the jerk. If they were helping with college and housing for their other kids, then they should have budgeted in a way that there would be some left for you. I don't think you're entitled for assuming that you would get the same treatment as your siblings. Have they showed favoritism like that in other areas of your life growing up? OP. Yeah, man. My siblings were always the favorite, but I don't usually make a big fuss about it. Not the jerk. Of course, kids are not entitled to their parents' money for college and condos, but I think you are entitled to the same treatment as your siblings. If they support one, they should support all. Your age is not a secret, so they knew college was coming up, and they are making a choice. My dad paid for college for my sisters and not for me, despite being a millionaire, so I understand that it is really hurtful. They helped out all their other kids with college, then bought their daughter a condo, then told you it's not your business what they do with their money, then they call you an entitled brat? How are you supposed to feel? I definitely feel left out if all of this is true. Sorry, that sucks. Not the jerk. The reality might be that they do see you as different. She took in and adopted her best friend's kid, so they didn't end up in the system. There's no indication she was looking to adopt in general. It's an awful situation, and I suspect they wanted to make sure you had a good life, but they did prioritize their biological kids. Well, they did adopt you when your mom passed. At least you're fortunate enough they did that much. Believe me, there's lots of people who don't get their continuing education financed, so you're not alone. It's rough to see that you're not getting the same advantages as the others, but remember the sad truth that you are not their natural kid. They may be feeling that they've done enough for a kid that's not theirs. If that is the hand that you are dealt, your best choice is to move on. You're the jerk. I get that it sucks to know that you have to take on debt. What I don't understand is why it isn't enough that they raised you, facilitated a good education and life for you. You could have been put into care and had a much different life, but they took you in when they didn't have to. Unfortunately, you're not their kid. I think ultimately it's your biological mom's issue for not having been able to provide this for you. But this family has done more than enough, and you should be much more thankful in my opinion. The biological mother who passed when OP was 4 should have done more to provide for him? How does that make sense in your head? Adoption means that a kid is legally equal to a natural-born kid by law and should morally be equal as well. The OP being 4 means there was a genuine chance that he could have found better parents than these. If these people did not want to treat OP equal to their own kids, they should have served as foster parents and helped him find better adoptive parents who would love him as they couldn't. Your opinion that this family has done more than enough by merely keeping OP out of the foster system is disgusting, and you aren't entitled to tell them how to feel about the hand he has been dealt. Thankful? Please. They've raised him as a second-class citizen for his entire life. He deserved a chance to have real parents. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his parents? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for telling my stepsister she can't wear my mom's wedding dress? I, 16 female, grew up without a father for a long time, and it was just me and my mom. Last year, my mom got married to my stepdad, Brad. Brad has 2 kids, Tessa, who's 26, and Jake, who's 18. My dad passed shortly after I was born, leaving my mom in mountains of debt. The one thing she refused to sell was her wedding dress. She always talked about how it was her dream for me to get married wearing her dress, or at least her veil. It's a gorgeous, simple white dress with a long lace veil. My dad had the dress handmade and designed for my mom before their wedding. When my mom remarried, she still refused to sell the dress and got a new dress for her wedding to Brad. She always talks about that dress being mine. Tessa got engaged last week. She was so excited to show off her ring and talk about her wedding plans. Tessa knows how much the dress means to me. So while talking about her wedding with my mom and Brad, she threw out the idea of wearing the dress my mom saved for me at her wedding because it'll save so much money. My mom brought up the fact that she wasn't comfortable with that since she was saving the dress for me. But Brad said my mom should agree since she now has 2 wedding dresses and I can't wear the other one. Tessa also pointed out that the dress would need so many alterations to even fit me since I'm much shorter than my mom and I'm not as thin as my mom. Tessa also said it would be years before I'd need it, so it wasn't going to be an issue. My mom was on the fence about it, but Brad was all for it and pulled the dress out of storage and handed it to Tessa. I freaked out and grabbed the dress out of her hands. I told her she wasn't allowed to wear my mom's dress and that she can get her own mom's dress or buy her own, but she wasn't allowed to wear the dress my mom is saving for me. I locked myself and the dress in my room. All day, my mom has been texting me and coming to the door, asking me to come out and talk to her and Brad. Brad has been calling me spoiled and selfish, saying that I'm acting like a huge brat. I just can't let some stranger wear the only thing of my dad I have left. I feel bad. Tessa is really upset. She's been crying and texting me, asking me to apologize and give her the dress back. I can't tell if I'm in the wrong. Brad and Tessa think I'm being a jerk, but my stepbrother and friends agree that I should stand my ground. Not the jerk. It's sentimental to you. And Brad is really over here trying to bully your mom into ignoring your feelings? Not the jerk. She's trying to pull a power move. Sneak the dress out to someone you can trust to hold on to it for you. Your mom needs to take the lead here and tell them no. Shut the argument down. If she falters, why are you prioritizing her want of a free dress over the sentimental value it holds to me? If you give her the dress, I'm telling you this will permanently damage our relationship, as you will be saying her words are more important than my feelings. She has 2 other dress options. There will be no coming back from this. This is the memory of my father, the way I know he can be there for my wedding. You're risking this to satisfy the tantrum of an adult who can take another dress or buy her own. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Brad and Tessa? Please let us know.
If some jerk treated my kid the way that Brad is treating OP, I'd end the marriage.
He gets exactly what he asked for. This happened when I, female, 20 at the time, was a junior in college. Here's some context. I had taken a long weekend trip to Florida with a friend of mine to visit her brother and go to the Universal Studios Fright Night Halloween event, which was awesome by the way. We had an amazing trip and we were on the plane about to head home. This was only my 2nd time ever with air travel. We didn't have much when I was growing up, so vacations were not a regular thing, and the ones we took were low-key. So there I was, just excited to be flying in my coach seat, waiting to take off. And we kept waiting. It became clear that there was a problem with the plane when the flight attendants started calling various passengers to exit to be placed on different flights, so they'd make their necessary connections. Eventually, after around 40 minutes, it was just my friend and I, plus around 6 other people. And then it was our turn to leave the plane. We were sort of near the end of the group, tromping back out into the waiting area. One couple, probably in their mid-50s, had stormed up ahead of us, and by the time my friend and I emerged from the gate entrance, the rude husband was already berating the pair of attendants, who, to their credit, remained poised and calm. They tried to reassure him, but he was talking over them.
"This is unacceptable. You better get me the same seats we had on that flight."
He had the first row in coach, the one with no seats in front of it, and therefore the extra leg room. By then, the rest of us had gathered around, and the attendants began addressing the whole group, offering reassurance, filling us in that there was a critical problem with the plane, which made me very glad for the change despite the inconvenience. The rude husband was going off through all of this, and when the attendants left to make arrangements for us all, He and his wife sat there and he continued his commentary to his poor wife.
Unacceptable. How dare they? They better have the same seats.
And so on. Shortly after, the attendants returned and the man practically rushed them.
I demand you make this right.
The attendant smiled and said, "You guys are all set, sir." And she smiled at him specifically. "I'm very happy to tell you that we have a flight leaving shortly and we were able to get you and your wife the exact same seats as you had booked on this previous flight." Rude husband.
I should hope so. That's the least you can do.
And he huffily returns to his seat. Meanwhile, the rest of us are just waiting. The attendant then turns to us and she says, "And I'm happy to let everyone else know that you'll all be flying first class with us today." Rude husband was furious and immediately jumped up to demand why they weren't flying first class while the rest of us just sat there in a state of stunned glee. The attendant just informed the man that she had given him his request and didn't stick around for more of his treatment. The wait wasn't long, and soon my friend and I were boarded into the Unicorn, fabled place that is first class. As a poor air travel newbie, it was like some fantasy land. Huge seats, real hot washcloths, and though we weren't old enough to partake in the free cocktail, we did get to choose from a basket of distinctive Pepperidge Farm cookies. And the food, we got a whole meal, which was truly delicious, with real crystal salt and pepper shakers at each place setting and actual metal cutlery. Meanwhile, rude husband is irate. My friend and I were in the last row of first class, which only had around 8 seats, and we could hear him going off on the coach attendants, going off on how those
kids don't deserve first class
and how they
should have gotten them. We're older.
They should be respected, not some kids. Someone else who was in first, not from our original plane, caught on and was quite tickled with the man's ire. Then the best part of all happened. The flight attendant in our section overheard rude husband's tirade with language specifically directed at my friend and me.
Who do these kids think they are?
As unworthy of the honor he should have been granted. The attendant shook his head and addressed me and my friend. "I'm sorry about that. Let me take care of this for you." And he closed the curtain to the coach cabin. Rude husband realized what was happening, which makes it even better. I got one last look at his red, irate face before he was gone forever. It was glorious. Am I the jerk for not paying 50% of the rent? I moved in with my boyfriend 4 months ago, and we agreed that I would pay half of the rent and utilities. I am not on the lease, and the utilities are in my boyfriend's name. We have a 2-bedroom apartment, the second bedroom used as a combo home office for me and music studio for him. Then, 3 weeks ago, his brother moved in. I came home from a weekend trip with my sister and found him there. No discussion beforehand. I was upset. My boyfriend swore it was only for a week at most, until his brother moved in with a friend. So he spent a week on the couch in the living room. Well, to no one's surprise, that didn't happen. The friend decided he didn't want the brother to move in. Given that the brother doesn't work, doesn't clean up after himself, and is a general jerk, even my boyfriend admits this about his brother, I can't say that I blame the friend. My boyfriend says he can't kick his brother out when he has no place to go, and begged me to give him a couple of months. I had started packing my things. I reluctantly agreed, and boyfriend ends up moving my desk into the living room where I have no privacy while I work, and his music stuff into a corner of the bedroom where we are basically tripping over it, so his brother can have a bedroom. I told boyfriend he has 2 months to get his brother out or I would move out. It gets to the time of the month for me to send money to my boyfriend for bills. I send him 25% of the rent and 33% of the utilities instead of 50% for both. Boyfriend is upset, saying that is not what we agreed on. I told him I also didn't agree to live with his brother, and I'm paying what I feel is fair given that. My thinking is that every apartment I have shared, you pay rent by bedroom and utilities by person. Boyfriend starts freaking out, saying that he can't afford that and that I agreed to his brother staying. I told him that I agreed to not move out. I did not agree to financially support his brother. He told me that I can't just change our agreement, and I pointed out that he had when he added a third person to the apartment. Boyfriend insists he doesn't have enough money to pay that much. He is short on money, and his old roommate moving out is one of the big reasons I moved in. Boyfriend says that he will end up having to not pay something and that it will hurt his credit, which he's been working on rebuilding. He tells me that he is already short because he's having to spend more money on groceries with his brother there. I flatly refuse to pay for more groceries. I am refusing to budge. Boyfriend insists that I'm trying to hurt him financially because I'm angry with him and being petty. I am angry, and I know that I can make bad decisions when I'm mad. However, thinking about it, I don't think I should have to support his brother. Living with 2 other people should cost less than living with 1 other person. However, I am doubting my own judgment. Am I being petty out of anger? Am I the jerk for not paying 50% of the rent? Karen demands I drive 12 hours to pick up her son. This morning, as I was getting ready for work, I received a Facebook Messenger message at like 6 a.m. This is from a friend on Facebook. This is someone I went to church with for a few years, about 10 years ago. We are friendly on Facebook, liking and occasionally comment on each other's posts, but I haven't seen this woman in person in 10 years. The message asked me if I could do her a favor. I said I would love to if I was able to. She tells me she's getting custody of her son today. She then proceeds to ask me if I still live in the state that I live in. I said yes. She said that she needs a ride from her hometown to the town I live in back to her hometown, and she needs the ride today. She then asked if she could call me, and I said no, I was almost at work and couldn't talk, but I would keep messaging her. I googled where she told me she lived. It's a 3.5-hour drive to her town. This is the amount of time Google said it would take, not taking into account bathroom breaks, gas fill-ups, traffic, or anything. Straight time, 3.5 hours. So what she needed me to do was drive 3.5 hours to get her, pick her up, drive 3.5 hours to get her son, and then drive her and her son back 3.5 hours. Then I would need to drive myself home the last 3.5 hours. So it would be over a 12-hour day of just driving. And she said that she is short on cash, so she would not be able to chip in for gas or food or anything. I told her that I was very happy about her getting custody of her son, but that I had work today, and that there was no way that I could help her today. She then became upset and said, "You told me you would do me a favor." Which I went back to the message, and I saw that I said, "I would love to if I'm able to." And I told her I was sorry, but that this is last minute, and I have work, and couldn't miss an entire day, minutes before I was supposed to show up. I don't feel like I'm the jerk in this situation, but the way that she reacted to me telling her I couldn't help makes me feel like I am. Also, I should add that I am almost 3 months pregnant and I have a broken leg. Both of these things I shared on Facebook, and both of these things I know she knew about because she had commented on the posts. So, am I the jerk? Obviously not the jerk. This woman sounds totally off. No wonder she has nobody else to ask. That lady may be short on cash, but she's sure long on nerve. And consider this, she can't get herself from point A to point B without the assistance of a virtual stranger. Are you certain she was granted custody, or was she roping you into custodial interference? Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you help her or not? Please let us know.
I'd screenshot her ridiculous messages and share them on Reddit so everyone can laugh at her.
Am I the jerk for changing the way my mother-in-law looks in my wedding photos? This happened at my wedding. I am very detail-oriented and planned our wedding with my husband very meticulously. Everything was color-coordinated and everything was aesthetically pleasing. Our colors were pink and black. I wanted parents and grandparents to also wear our wedding colors so the wedding photos would be cohesive. I specifically spoke with each person and told them the color scheme and how I would very much like everyone to color coordinate. Nobody had an issue with this, so I thought. Both sets of husband's grandparents went out shopping to find clothes to explicitly match our wedding party. I thought that was so cute and appreciated it immensely. My mom and I went shopping for my grandparents because they asked us to, so they were also matching. I offered to take my mother-in-law shopping to pick out something to wear, but she declined and said she would go with her friends. I said okay and kind of forgot about it. The night of the rehearsal, my mom asks my mother-in-law what she's wearing, and she responds with a long dress in the wedding colors. Next day, I'm getting ready in the bridal suite, and my mother-in-law moseys on up and is wearing a royal purple ball gown. She doesn't wear makeup that often, and I was shocked to see she was wearing neon blue eyeshadow and bright pink lipstick. Her husband wore a matching tie. I was livid, but ignored it because I didn't want it to ruin my big day. My father-in-law asked me how he looked during pictures, and I responded, "You and mother-in-law stick out like a big sore purple thumb." He asked what that was supposed to mean, and I told him that they knew the dress code. Now they looked out of place. He said he wore what was given to him and he would relay the message to my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law approached me later in the night and asked me about my issue. I asked her why she lied about her outfit choice. She said she never bought a dress that would go with our wedding colors and planned on wearing the purple dress she found. It was more true to her, and that's what mattered. I said that's fine. I'll fix the pictures in post-production. She said I would not adjust anything. They paid for the pictures and I would not alter anything. I said any picture I post with her in it will be altered on my end, so they have no control of what I do. I excused myself and enjoyed the rest of my wedding. My mother-in-law has a habit of trying to make things about her and make little comments like, "Well, I am the mother of the groom. My opinion counts." Or, "I can make decisions too. I'm the mother of the groom and we are helping pay for this wedding." My parents paid for 70% of the wedding. My in-laws paid for the photographer and the rehearsal dinner. The photographer was their friend and only charged them $800 for the whole night. The rehearsal dinner cost $300 because they chose the cheapest options for everything possible. I asked my parents, his parents, my grandparents, and his grandparents to please wear black and pink. All the men wore black tuxes and pink or black ties. The women, minus my mother-in-law, wore black dresses or pink dresses. No other guests had stipulations to their attire except, please wear formal attire. Edit. My father-in-law knew about the color scheme and went along with my mother-in-law's plan because he wanted to prove a point. My mother-in-law went out and purchased the purple dress when she had a beautiful black dress in her closet. I can't stand overly controlled weddings like this because of reasons like this, but it does sound like she did it on purpose to annoy you. So, not the jerk. Not the jerk. Her big eyesore didn't turn out the way she wanted. Those are your photos, not hers. If they didn't intend those photos as a gift, meaning you get free reign, then they should have made that clear way before the wedding. Not the jerk. If it were a simple misunderstanding, I could have given her the benefit of the doubt, but the fact that she straight up lied to you about what she was wearing makes her the jerk 100%. She knew what she was doing, and from the sound of it, she went out of her way to be as ostentatious as possible. This is your wedding, and it's not about her. I don't think asking people to color coordinate is an unreasonable ask at all, but it's like she went out of her way to draw as much attention to herself as possible. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or mother-in-law? Please let us know.
Confession, I've never been to a single wedding in all of my life, and I definitely don't plan to.
Am I the jerk for not acting like a mom to my son? I know this sounds bad, but let me explain a little. I, 35, female, have a 14-year-old son. I do everything I can for my son and make sure he has everything he needs. Lately, he's been acting out a little at home and school, so I decided to sit him down to try to figure out what was happening. He's my only child, and his dad and I are still together. I tried to sit him down and ask why he was acting out. I was concerned if maybe it had something to do with myself or his father, but he wouldn't budge. I asked him was there any issues going on at school, because if there was, I would be more than happy to help him. I was scared there would be bullying at his school, and I was prepared to transfer him to another school if necessary. He said there was no bullying, and he hadn't had any issues. He just felt like 14-year-olds should act out a little. I told him his behavior was not allowed in my house. His behavior consisted of swearing at myself and his father, at his teacher, and much more. I tried so hard to discipline him as much as possible. So here's where the issue started. After a little fussing with my son, he said, "My life would be better if I didn't have a mother." I was extremely hurt. I said, "Okay," and went on with my day. I prepared dinner for myself and his father, not for my son. When my son smelt the food, he came downstairs and asked where his was. I responded, "I made dinner for myself and your dad. Since life is easier without a mom, there's some heatable food in the freezer." My son went absolutely crazy. He stormed to his room and did not come out until today morning. Normally, I would take him to school, but today I did not. He came downstairs expecting his breakfast that I make for him every morning, but there wasn't any. He said, "Where's my breakfast?" I responded, "Your mother would normally do that for you, but if life is easier without one, you'll need to prepare your own breakfast. Also, take the bus to and from school." After a few swears, he made himself some cereal and took the bus. I suppose my son called his grandmother, my mother-in-law, about this, and I received many calls saying I was a horrible mother, that I'm starving him and being petty. I thought this was a good way to discipline my kid and make him grateful for everything he has. I'm starting to think I messed up. So, am I the jerk? Edit for info. Later today when he gets home from school, I plan on sitting him down to have a conversation that what he said really hurt me. I do not plan to bring up the fact he called my mother-in-law. Edit 2. My son had a half day, so I texted him asking if he would like me to pick him up or the bus. He texted back saying he wanted me to get him, so I did. In the car, he immediately apologized for what he said, and he said that his friends were acting out, so he wanted to fit in. His friends got suspended today for something they did, and they wanted my son to join. My son did not, and he said he was sorry for how he was acting. I also apologized for my actions. Edit 3. I want to say thank you very much for your comments. When my son got home, he cleaned his room and even offered to help with dinner to learn to cook. In only a few hours, our relationship has gotten better and our communication has also gotten better. Not the jerk. It's not like you actually deprived him of anything. He still had access to food and a way to get to school. It was definitely petty, but he wasn't harmed in any way, and maybe sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. OP. I absolutely agree what I was doing was very petty, but I could not think of any other solution. He's not allowed to play on his video games, but I still give him access to his phone because you never know when there will be an emergency. That sounds fair, and I don't think the pettiness is necessarily bad in this situation, as long as you actually talk to him as well. A big sound, not the jerk. I don't think she's being petty. She gave her son exactly what he asked for. At best, to be malicious compliance. I would also call mother-in-law and tell her to stay out of your family's business. Not the jerk. He's 14, he can feed himself. He isn't being kept home from school, he can take the bus. You would be the jerk if you kept this going for weeks, but doing it for a couple of days to help him realize all the things you do for him and appreciate them better is actually a really good life lesson. And it's natural consequences. He doesn't want a mom? You are letting him have his wish. But definitely, after a day or two, you should then have a conversation. But your edit says you are already planning to do that. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her son? Please let us know.
I got suspended in 8th grade for telling my teacher he looked like Snoop Dogg. Everyone in class laughed, but he didn't think it was funny.
Am I the jerk for excluding someone from a dinner because of their food allergies? I, 31 female, am part of a friend group that meets up for dinner about twice a month. There's 6 to 8 of us that go together depending on schedules, and we take turns picking restaurants we want to try, and for the most part, we seem to have similar tastes. Last year, one of my friends, Jen, asked if we could include a friend of hers, Kate, that just moved to our city. Jen knew Kate from college, and since Kate was new in town, Jen thought this would be a nice way for her to develop social connections without too much hassle or pressure. Turns out, Kate is really nice and funny and is now good friends with all of us. However, Kate has a pretty serious seafood allergy. Like, not just shellfish or just fish, all seafood. She's not deathly allergic, but more like breakout in hives type allergic. This hasn't really been an issue since we live in the Midwest and there's not a lot of seafood specialty restaurants near us. There are a few that we tried before Kate moved here, but none of them were worth risking Kate's allergy to go back to. That was until a new sushi restaurant opened up about 4 months ago. My husband and I went, and it was amazing. We then went on a double date with another friend and her husband, and they loved it too. So when it was my turn to pick the next restaurant, I suggested that we go to this sushi place. A few other women spoke up that they've been wanting to try that place too. But then Jen spoke up and reminded us of Kate's food allergy and asked if I could pick a different restaurant. Unfortunately, the sushi place doesn't really sell much of anything that isn't seafood. Yes, they have some dumplings and other types of stuff for appetizers, but that's pretty much it. Not exactly a full meal. But I did the nice friendly thing and picked a different restaurant that we could all eat at. The next week though, I asked the other girls who wanted to try the sushi place if they wanted to go with me, and they accepted. It wasn't part of our normal scheduled dinners, just a few of us. But word got around that a smaller group of us had gone to the sushi place and didn't include everyone. Jen, Kate, and another friend were upset that the rest of us had gone somewhere else without them. They felt that we were purposely excluding people. But to me, this isn't middle school. We're allowed to do things as friends outside of the full group. And since Kate has a food allergy, it makes sense that she doesn't attend a meal like this. We still have our normal scheduled dinners, just this time a smaller group went to a restaurant that another friend could not eat at. Like, if I wanted to exclude Kate, I could have just stood firm on eating at the sushi place to begin with, but I didn't. But Jen and Kate specifically think I crossed a line by going behind their backs to eat with just a few of us, and that I'm trying to create division in our group. Now people are taking sides and pointing fingers, and it's a whole mess. Not the jerk. You picked a different place for her with the whole group. You just decided to go with the interested group of friends to that restaurant later on. They can't expect you to never eat seafood just because one person in the group can't. Jen comes off more like Kate's mother than her friend. When multiple people expressed interest in the seafood restaurant, Jen should have backed off. Kate is a grown woman. She can decide for herself if she wants to go to the restaurant and just eat a few seafood-free appetizers or sit one restaurant out. No, I think it was nice of Jen to advocate for Kate in this little way. Kate's new to the city. Jen invited her to join their dinner group as a way to make friends. Everyone likes Kate, and Jen reminded them of Kate's allergy, so Kate didn't have to feel like she was making an imposition on everyone she doesn't know very well. Seems like decent, socially aware behavior all around. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the upset friend group? Please let us know.
Having friends is so overrated. People are so much more trouble than they're worth.
Am I the jerk for excluding my mom from my college move-in day? I, 18 female, graduated high school a year early and decided instead of taking a break, I wanted to immediately start college. So I did a semester at a community college last year just to get ahead, and now I've actually moved on to a campus to finish my degree. I lived with my mom, who's 42, and her husband, Ryan, who's 48, halfway through high school because my siblings, Amy, who's 10, and Liam, who's 7, wanted me around. And I wanted to see them too before I started doing adult stuff and got too busy to come around as often. As much as I loved being near my brother and sister, I hated living in the same house as Ryan because he and his family weren't shy about the fact that they don't really like me. When he and my mom first got together, it was like I was being purposely excluded from everything he and his family would invite us to. On holidays, I'd have a seat at the table, but no one would really talk to me. I'd be asked to take pictures instead of be in them, and anytime I tried to make an effort to be included, I was always told that it was just for the family, not me. It got worse when they had my siblings, because then I would have to sit on the sidelines and watch as my brother and sister were enthusiastically accepted and wanted by Ryan's family, all while they made it blatantly obvious that they didn't want anything to do with me. There were times when Ryan would schedule family outings, but find a way to leave me at home, or he'd just straight up say I wasn't invited. The real last straw was when Ryan's sister got my mom a Mother's Day gift a few years ago. It was a locket with a picture of my brother and sister in it, and she said it was so my mom could always have her 2 kids close to her heart. My mom didn't say anything about me. She didn't even glance in my direction. So I stopped trying and just accepted that I'd never be a real part of her new family because I just wasn't wanted there. I'd been slowly packing my things up for the past year, either taking them to my dad's house or getting them ready to go to my dorm. So on Saturday, when move-in day started, I put all of the stuff I planned on taking into my car and drove to campus myself. My dad met me there and we decorated my room together. My mom thought I was just spending the weekend with my dad, so when I ended up telling her that I wasn't going to be coming back during the week because I had moved in already, she got really upset. She said it was hurtful that I would exclude her from this huge moment in my life, and that as my mom, it's her job to be there for this journey and be there for me. I told her that she had been letting her husband exclude me from her life since the day they started dating, and because that never seemed to bother her, I didn't think it would be a big deal for me to do it too. I felt justified in this at first, but I could really tell I hurt her feelings, and now I'm starting to think I may be the jerk. Info: I did mention the exclusion to her a lot when I was younger. She said she had talked to Ryan about it, but nothing changed. I tried again when I started living with them, but still nothing happened. I told her about the move-in date a few times, but she's been busy, so I guess she forgot when it was. Not the jerk. So your mom thinks, as your mom, it's her job to be there for you and for this journey? Pity she didn't get the memo years ago about being there for her kid. Sorry if this seems harsh, but your mom needed her feelings to be hurt, badly. Only then might she finally get a clue about how you've been feeling all this time. Not the jerk, but your mother and her precious new family sure are. I wouldn't let her play mom for any of the big moments. I'd avoid their house as much as you can. I'd even say things like, if you miss me, look at the locket of your kids. Or, sorry, it was a family outing, so you weren't included, obviously, since I'm not included in your family outings. I'd make it very clear that she has the relationship she's earned. Am I the jerk for refusing to make desserts for my coworkers when my dishes were returned still dirty? So I love to bake desserts. It's a meditative sort of activity to me. I really enjoy making tasty treats for other people, especially since I'm actually not a huge sweets person and couldn't ever eat all the stuff I bake. Most of the time, I take it into work. I work at a small restaurant staffed by about a dozen people, including the 2 owners. We are all pretty tightly knit, as most of us have been here since the restaurant opened. I started bringing desserts for everyone to enjoy. It was never an obligation, nor did it ever feel like it. But I got a little upset when I went in the other day after I dropped off a pie to get my glass dish back, and one of the owners handed it back to me still dirty. It still had crumbs and bits of pie crust left in it. I didn't say anything and just resolved to let it go. The following week, I made an apple cake in a glass 9x13 to bring in, and left it in that evening so that the others on later shifts could enjoy it too. 2 days later, on my next shift, I was given back my dish that was still dirty, and now it needed to be soaked to clean it because the crumbs and such had dried to a hard layer. I thought this was kind of rude, as I had been raised that if someone gives me food, casseroles, etc., it was good manners by washing the dish that it came in when you go to return it. It happened a couple more times, so I asked the owner who was managing that day if my dishes could be washed before I got them back. However, the next few weeks, nothing changed, and my dishes were still left dirty when they were returned. I decided that I'd just use disposable bakeware for anything that I took to work. However, I ran into an issue that sometimes the baking time and temperature for some of my recipes doesn't work for the cheap metal disposable bakeware, something I'd forgotten about until I took a pie to work, and when they cut into it, it was discovered that the bottom crust was a bit burned. One of the owners joked that I had downgraded my equipment, so they got burnt pie. A server said she noticed I'd stopped using glassware and wondered why. So I replied that my glassware was never cleaned after everyone had eaten, and it was a major pain to clean it after it had dried. Plus, I felt that it was a bit rude to have my dishes returned to me still dirty. The server shot back that the desserts were gifts, and that it's actually rude to insist that the giftees have to do something in return. Another server agreed with her and said that if I was expecting them to wash my dishes for me, then I shouldn't bother making food for them at all. So I said I wouldn't if it was such a contentious issue. The server said I was being petty and are refusing to speak to me unless they have to. Now, I could see their reasoning that someone being gifted something shouldn't be obligated to do something in return, but I still feel that it's rude to not wash the dish that gifted food came in. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. They work in a restaurant. Why are they returning dishes dirty? Not the jerk. You're not obligated to make desserts for them. If you're making the effort, then it's basic manners to clean it and give it back. Not to mention, they themselves said you should stop if you want clean dishes back. Not the jerk. I believe there's a difference between treats and gifts. It's just common courtesy to clean a dish before returning it to someone. They're ungrateful slobs who don't deserve any of your delicious treats. No jerks here. Ordinarily, I would agree with you. If you gift a dish to a neighbor or friend, they should return the dish clean. However, in this case, you are gifting to a large group of people. So then, who's supposed to take responsibility for cleaning that dish? In this case, no one person is being rude. There just isn't a fair way to allocate that responsibility among the random people that benefit from your gift. If you say the person who takes the last piece, I guarantee there will be a little piece left in your dish until you pick it up. This 100%. I work in an office where people occasionally bring in treats, and it's just assumed that they're also responsible for dealing with the dirty Tupperware at the end of the day because nothing else makes sense. Dealing with the cleanup is part of the gesture. Although this particular case is kind of silly because every commercial kitchen I've ever been in has a dishwasher that could clean a pie pan in like 90 seconds. No jerks here. While yes, it is annoying, there's no real rule that says you have to do this. Curious to know, who would you expect to wash it? I'm assuming, since this is at work, that the dish is set out in an open communal area where people can take a piece when they want. Does that mean the last person to take a piece is expected to be the one to wash the dish? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her coworkers? Please let us know.
Bruh, this is why you don't do nice things for people. They rarely appreciate it.
Don't like me flexing my work hours? Me, early 20s, getting a job at McDonald's flipping burgers. I've always had high work ethic, always arrive early at work, and live by my saying, rather 10 minutes early than 10 seconds late. The thing is, not only do I always arrive early, I struggle with staying still for too long. So what happens when I get to work? I'm not exactly making myself a cup of coffee and sitting and watching. I jump in and start working. On the other hand, if it's very calm at work and circumstances allow it, I don't think it's a bad thing to clock out a few minutes early. And when the circumstances don't allow it, I also don't mind working a bit of overtime until the brunt of the workload eased up. With this being McDonald's, I most of the time clocked in early and clocked out late. The coworkers don't mind, the shift manager doesn't mind. The boss, on the other hand, is the type of person who complains about things. One day it's been calm for roughly 20 minutes, and we've done everything we usually don't have time for in the kitchen. I have roughly 10 minutes left on my shift and ask my coworker, let's call him Tim, if they can hold the fort until the next guy starts, and I can call it a night. He laughs it off and tells me everything is a-okay. I change clothes and get ready to clock out and see the boss coming towards me. Boss.
Where are you going?
Me. Home? Boss.
You still have time left on your shift.
I know. I came in earlier to help. It's calm, and we've done all the prep and clean we can. There's nothing left to do until a customer walks in. Tim can handle the kitchen, no problem, and next guy will be here at 10. Boss.
If you're scheduled, you're supposed to do your hours. You can still clean something.
Cue malicious compliance. After that conversation, I made sure to always clock in right on time and then go change and wash my hands, etc., which resulted in me entering the kitchen a few minutes late every day, regardless of how many customers there were. And since the boss was explicit about sticking to my hours, I always made sure to clock out right on time. Whenever the coworkers or managers asked me to stay, I told them, boss told me to stick to my schedule. Sorry guys, it's out of my hands. Best of luck though. Line is stretched outside the restaurant? Ain't my problem. Just got a phone call of 3 buses with tourists coming in? Nope. Boss asking me to help? Sorry boss, it's outside of my scheduled hours. May I suggest you grab an apron, wash your hands, and help the guys in the kitchen. They'll get swamped otherwise. See you Monday. Am I the jerk for saying too bad when some family members didn't like the vegetarian options at our reunion? My parents celebrated their 45th anniversary this month. My brother and I decided to have a family reunion as our gift to them because our parents have often said they miss seeing many members of their family, and it was a shame they didn't get to see them for so long. This reunion has been in the works since last year to give people time to plan. My wife and I love to cook, and we said we'd handle a large portion of the food. We sent out invitations about 7 months ago. On the invitations, we stated to please let us know about food allergies so we can plan accordingly. Last month, I emailed everyone that they can bring something if they chose to and listed out all of the food allergies I had been told. No one had any questions or brought up dietary restrictions. Pretty much, most of our family from both sides showed up, and we invited a lot of our parents' friends, so there was a whole lot of food to feed that many people. During the party, 2 cousins came up to my brother and I and asked us about the ingredients in a lot of the dishes, and were saying how they couldn't eat a lot of stuff because it had meat or dairy in them. Turned out, one of our cousins was vegan and the other was vegetarian, and there were only 3 other people vegan or vegetarian there, but these 2 were the only ones that didn't find anything to eat. I apologized for the lack of vegan options because I wasn't aware, but there were vegetarian-friendly options, and these 2 said that there weren't enough options and not done up like a lot of the other dishes and sides. Mind you, we had more than just salad as an option. There was also macaroni cheese, grilled veggie skewers, mashed potatoes, cucumber salad, mushroom steaks, deviled eggs, fruit ambrosia, and homemade veggie burgers. I asked them if any of those were suitable, and they said no, and how the reunion was a bummer because they couldn't eat any of what was offered, except maybe veggie burgers when everyone else was feasting. Here's where I might have been the jerk. I pretty much told them, too bad. You should have said something when I sent out the invitations asking about allergies, or you could have just brought something yourself. Nothing else was said, but they were giving some side eyes and loudly complaining the rest of the afternoon, and one of my aunts took me aside after the reunion to tell me I had been a bad host to some guests because they just sat around watching others eat and I didn't take their concerns seriously. I thought I had done enough just asking about allergies, but my brother and I have been wondering if we should have done more for the people we invited. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is a jerk? OP or their relatives? Please let us know.
Family reunions are so overrated.
Am I the jerk for asking for either my PS4 or $1,000 from my brother during his time of need? I'm in a bit of a pickle right now, and I could use some moral judgment. I, 19 female, very avidly play video games. To give you an idea of how passionate I am about them, I'm currently going to college for video game development and computer science. And most people know that playing video games has become a pretty expensive hobby. So back when I was a preteen, I received a PS4 as a Christmas gift from my dad. I had to pay for all the games and anything extra, but that's okay. So I've bought tons of games and have probably spent nearly $1,000 in games and DLC, all from my own pocket. A few years ago, my older brother, 25 male, started liking video games too, so he began using my PS4 regularly to the point that he used it more than even I did. We began splitting the prices of games we wanted to play, and it made it easier on both of us doing that. Here's where the issue comes in. My brother had been living at home for a couple years while he went to a community college in our hometown, but a couple of years back, he moved several hours away to attend a different college. When he did that, he took the PS4 with him. I was not made aware of this until he had already moved out. I came back home one day from a friend's house to find that the console, controllers, and all of the games were missing. Turned out, he lied to our mom that I had given him permission to take it. Turns out, his girlfriend had apparently taken a liking to The Sims 4 and played it pretty much non-stop on our PS4 and wanted to make her happy. I made the decision that once he graduated and worked full-time, then I'd ask for him to either return the PS4 and all games, controllers, and game drives, or to reimburse me for it. Now that the time has come, he graduated months ago and ended up landing a great paying job. So I finally took the time and asked him what I stated in the previous paragraph. He ended up going off and yelling at me. Apparently, his girlfriend decided to become a stay-at-home wife and he's paying the bills. He thought I was aware of this, so he was super upset that I'd be such a greedy jerk in his time of need. I told him that he didn't have to give me money if he just gave me back what was mine. And if he did give me money, I didn't need it right now, nor in a single payment. But he said that his girlfriend was super attached to it, so he couldn't do that to her. We argued more before he ended up hanging up and blocking me on everything. The reaction was so extreme that I'm wondering if I was wrong. I didn't realize he was having financial issues, but I guess I should have been more in the know, considering his family. My Karen wife is refusing to help with our baby. She has been evaluated for PPD multiple times by multiple doctors, and she does not have it. I, 28 male, have been with my wife, who's 29, for 7 years. I love her with all my heart, but I'm really upset with her right now. A little over a year ago, my wife announced that she was pregnant. I'm not going to lie. I was jumping for joy at the idea of being a father. She was on the pill, and to my knowledge took it perfectly, but I guess we fell into that 1% where birth control fails. I suggested not having it, but she wanted to keep the baby, so we went through with the pregnancy. My whole view has changed now that my son, who's 5 months old, is here. All of my worries and apprehensions melted away the first time I held him. However, I realized very quickly that my wife was not doing her share of childcare. We both work from home, but I'm the only one who gets up when he's crying to feed, change, or soothe him. She didn't want to naturally feed him, which is totally fine, but she has only fed him a handful of times in the past 5 months. She refuses to get up at night, so all of his nighttime care is on me. I can count on one hand the amount of diapers she's changed. I was lenient at first because I understand birth is very taxing on the body and can be traumatic, but I have seen no improvement in the past 5 months despite talking to her multiple times and telling her I need help. I'm exhausted. When I bring it up, she says she'll try harder, but she never does. Obviously, PPD and other such mental health issues were an immediate concern, but all of the doctors we went to said she doesn't fit the criteria. She loves our son, cuddles him, and plays with him, but doesn't do any of the hard work like feeding and diaper changes. She's not gotten up at night a single time. I reached the end of my rope yesterday when my son would not stop crying. I was doing my best to soothe him, and my wife had the audacity to look up from the TV and complain that he was being too loud and to take him in another room. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I yelled at her and told her she's being a horrible mother. She was deeply upset by this and went to stay with her parents, leaving me and my son at home. Now she's calling me a jerk and has my in-laws texting me and calling me to tell me how much of a horrible jerk I am. I'm just so tired. I feel like a single parent. I do feel bad because I know what I said was mean, but I am also so angry that she's enjoying the good parts of parenting while I'm stuck with the hard parts. She goes out with friends and does fun things and partakes in her hobbies while I stay home with our baby. I have not gotten a day to myself in 5 months. Am I the jerk? Edit. She has nothing medically wrong with her, mentally, physically, or otherwise. I see a lot of people suggesting that something must be wrong, but I'm telling you, she has had mental and physical checkups and is completely fine from a medical standpoint. No PPD, no hormone imbalances, no mental illness. I don't know how many times I have to make this clear. You're the jerk. So your wife is pretty much acting the way that most dads do. But let me guess, it's too shocking for you because she's a woman. Honestly, men act that way and get away with it constantly. It's about time that us moms get a break while you dads step up and at least try to be a parent. Also, no matter what you're throwing a fit about, you have no excuse to yell at her. That's a major red flag, and I hope she dumps you. She deserves so much better. Have you considered a night nurse and/or a nanny? You mentioned that she came from a wealthy family, so she's probably used to having things taken care of for her. You are absolutely not the jerk for having this all come to a head, but if she's not going to put in the work, either you or someone else has to. She's shown you that she's not going to do it. Your options are to continue at your status quo, leave, or find some help to get through this if you want to stay together. Can you lean on her family to help support this? Not the jerk. Look, bud, as parents, we always have duties to fulfill. Your wife isn't playing her part as a mother. I know I'll get downvoted to heck for this because we're on Reddit, but she needs to do better. If she isn't willing to change her ways, which she's proven by now, you should not stay with her. Good luck trying to get custody of your kid, what with you being a man and all. We all know courts aren't big fans of us when it comes to custody situations, but if your kid stays with this sorry excuse of a mom, it will have a seriously bad impact on their upbringing. Please do everything you can to get custody of your kid when you leave, and try to find a good life partner who can be the mother that your kid deserves. Edit. Holy downvotes, Batman. What I love the most is how, if the roles were reversed, y'all would be calling him a deadbeat dad. But of course, since the mom is the lazy deadbeat, you all stick up for her and make excuses. Reddit Logic 101. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
Wow, she sounds even lazier than you are, Reddit boy.
Entitled Dad threw away all my childhood possessions. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. My parents always made it clear that when you turn 18, you're out of the house. Whether you're off to university, moving, or just homeless, they don't care, but you're out. They did it to all my siblings, and what do you know? None of them want a relationship. I was 16 when the last one left, so it was just me and them. Since 5 kids from the ages of 54 to 18 didn't want any relationship, they tried a little harder with me. By that, I mean I was allowed to eat 3 meals a day if I wanted, but I had to do the meal planning, shopping, and cooking. My dad ate oatmeal in the morning and granola at night. My mother ate 1 meal a day at 8 p.m. and only made food for herself. I was able to get new shoes once a year instead of waiting till my toes and heels were showing. Just little things like that. But I guess old habits die hard, because when I turned 18 and went off to uni, they couldn't get my stuff out of the house fast enough. They basically tried to push me to take every single possession and shove it into a dorm room. Not just clothes or books, but my actual futon bed. Yup, didn't even get a real bed until uni. My photos, anything and everything. Of course, that wasn't going to work, and I told them so. They said okay, box it all up. So I did and put it in their storage unit. Within 1 month, they had taken down the walls of my bedroom to make their living room a massive space. So on holidays, I could choose to sleep on the one couch where my dad would wake me up at 4:30 when he woke up, or I could beg a friend for a place to crash. I spent most of my free time at friends because of this. I just felt they hated me being there. Finally, I graduated and my parents split up. I helped move them out and my boxes were moved to my dad's McMansion. When my grandparents passed, he basically stole all their money. None of the grandkids got a dime or a single memento, which I know my grandparents would not have been okay with, and he got $4 to $5 million. So he bought a flashy car and a giant house. At this point, I had 8 small boxes of stuff. It took up no space at all in his place. We're talking tiny boxes. But one day he texts me and asks me if I want anything from my boxes. I've recently moved to the other side of the country, And he had years to broach this, but he waited until I was 1,000 kilometers away after I just helped him move to ask if I could get rid of my boxes. I asked him to just pop them open and we'll FaceTime and spend 20 minutes talking about it. He says,
"Oh, you don't want any of this stuff. It's over a decade old,
and that he should put it on the curb for the garbage men already. A list of what he tossed is as follows. All of my baby photos from ages 0 to 13. All my personal items, books, photos, gifts, letters from Granny, Christmas presents from Gramps, all gone. All my clothes from when I was 15 to 18. I wanted to keep a few sentimental items I already had written down. He just tossed them before he asked. He only asked because he felt guilty that he had done it and expected I'd say I didn't want it. He hates possessions. He has absolutely nothing in his house but a desk, a futon, a bookshelf, a computer, and a camera, all in one bedroom of a 5-bedroom, 4-bath. Edit. Since I've gotten so many comments about this, I asked if I could keep them in his house. He said yes. If he had said no, I would have rented a storage unit. He only asked me to get rid of them after I left. He could have told me before, but he waited till I left and then tossed them, and then after he tossed them, he asked me if I wanted them, which I could see him doing just to be cruel. Kinda like, "Oh, you wanted them? Well, I threw them away," jab. I was already making plans for alternatives, and he just tossed them without giving me time to move them. Edit 2. Why didn't you take the boxes with you? Because I live in a tiny, tiny space in the most expensive city in my country, so I didn't have a lot of space, and he has a house so large that you can play a full game of tennis in the living room. He also said I could keep them there when I moved, so I trusted him. Edit 3. Why did they have 6 kids if they obviously didn't want them? My mother, according to my father, liked how people treated her when they saw she was a mother. She didn't consider my first 2 siblings as real kids because she was their stepmom, so she told my dad she wanted kids, but he had gotten snipped after the first 2. They adopted 2 kids. The second they arrived, she realized she didn't feel that they were her real kids, so he got his snip reversed, and then they had my brother and I. But she actually hated being a mom and basically ignored us all, except for being a cruel monster to the adopted and stepkids. My older brother was the golden child, as he was her only real son. He's a monster in his own right, and even he got kicked out at 18. I was just the lucky one and was treated like a ghost in the house. When I was 16, my dad was finally starting to realize he was a jerk when the other 5 cut them off and told him why they cut him off. But he never wanted kids. He just did it because she said she did, which is almost worse in my opinion. Like, if you had the kids, then commit to it. Am I the jerk for firing an employee for driving his personal truck to job sites? I own and operate my own contracting company. I've been in business for almost a decade now and have almost 50 people working for me. I usually ask that my workers drive to the office in the morning and take company vans or trucks to job sites, but I understand that isn't always the easiest option for people, so I do allow them to drive personal vehicles to job sites if they need to. However, there has been one guy, Steve, who I have gotten a few complaints about from customers. Steve drives a big, lifted, customized truck. It's a nice truck, and I know he takes a lot of pride in it. But the thing is, it's covered in political stickers. Now, if you work for me, I don't care what your political views are, as long as you're good at your job. And Steve has been with me for about 5 years now, and he's good at what he does. He's knowledgeable and efficient, and overall has been a quality employee. But Steve has been driving his truck to job sites pretty regularly because his kids are in daycare, and it's easier for him to drop them off in the morning and then go directly to a job rather than to the office. We've talked about this, and I approved it to make it easier for him. Normally, this wouldn't be an issue for me, but the last 3 customers that Steve was working with complained to me that he was parking his truck in front of their house, and they weren't comfortable with the political messages on his truck. The last one even took pictures of his truck and posted it to social media and tagged my company in it. I had a talk with Steve about driving his truck to jobs and told him that he's going to need to come to the office in the morning and take a company vehicle. He complained about the hassle of dropping off his kids, and I told him he's going to need to figure that out. But for now, I want him to leave his truck at the office as it's causing me and the company headaches. He complied for the rest of that last job, but when we started a new one last week, he started driving his own truck again. Sure enough, 3 days into the job, and I got complaints from the customer about Steve's truck. I had another talk with Steve and told him that this was no longer negotiable and that I am requiring him to take a company vehicle. He accused me of discriminating against him, and it turned into a heated argument. We both said some harsh things, and I eventually told him he was fired. He has since posted a lot of negative stuff on social media about me and my company. He has also talked to a lot of my employees, and some of them have taken his side and think I was in the wrong to fire him. I've had to hold a company-wide meeting about this, and I have revoked the option to drive personal vehicles to jobs, and now we require everyone to take company vehicles, no exceptions. Now I have people upset with me for taking away that option when they never got complaints, so maybe I'll have to revisit the idea. But I don't think I was a jerk for firing Steve. Not the jerk. I'm gonna make a wild guess as to those stickers. If he turned up at my door with all those stickers on his truck, I would turn him away and never use your company again, because I would assume that that was the company culture, which I refuse to support. That's my line of thought. OP even says himself he's getting some social media flack for Steve's beliefs. If Steve wants to proudly display his insecurities to the world while working, he can find a company that supports those. I've stopped using companies with those stickers, stopped going to restaurants owned by people who spout those beliefs. They're working really hard at removing the United part of the US. I'm not going to reward them with my money. I'd see those stickers and would 100% assume it was fine with the company, and I'd tell friends. No point in telling the company because enough of those types are violent. Not the jerk. The amount of people saying otherwise is astonishing to me. In fact, you let him drive his truck to job sites until it became a consistent problem. Then you addressed it. Then he did it again, and it was yet again a problem. So you attempted to explain it and retain him, but he started crying about it and essentially forced the issue. It's your company, your name, and the money and PR involved affects everyone, not just you. It was a business decision, pure and simple. You can require people to drive company vehicles to job sites, just like you can require people to wear company shirts to job sites. Sure, one person might love an employee's bumper stickers, but another person most assuredly will not. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Steve? Please let us know.
Employees can save themselves a lot of heartache once they realize their company is there to make money, not for them to express their personal views.
Customer demands coworker's personal number. About 20 years ago, my small company merged with another small company from another state. The other office closed and the employees were relocated to our office. Our office is on the east coast of the US. The other office was in a time zone 1 hour behind ours. One of the new coworkers had to leave about 30 minutes before 5 to meet a vendor fixing something in their new house. About 5 minutes before 5, one of the other company's customers called us and I answered the phone. She wanted to talk to the new coworker. I told her that coworker was not in the office and offered to take a message. This led to a long argument. The customer was from the west coast of the US, which is 3 hours behind us. The customer started by demanding to know why the coworker was not there when it was not even 2 p.m. I explained the time difference. Then she demanded my coworker's personal number so she could call her at home. I explained that I was not going to give out personal information about a coworker I had just recently met. The customer then assured me that the coworker had given out her former home number, no cell phone, and that coworker would be very upset if the customer was unable to reach her at her new home. I didn't engage that argument because it was stupid. Finally, the customer accepted that she was not going to talk to the coworker and asked if someone else could help. The answer was no, because it was well after 5 p.m. and everyone else had left, and I was not yet trained on the new product. This brought us right back to the fact that closing at 2 p.m. was ridiculous. I explained again that it's 5 p.m. where I was. We simply do not have enough employees to be covering every time zone on the planet. We have customers all over the world. We don't open 5 hours early for European customers. We don't stay open 8 hours late for Australian customers. And we don't stay open 3 hours late for Californian customers. We use East Coast hours because those hours work best for our handful of employees and their families. Customers are generally understanding, and nothing we do is that time sensitive that it can't wait until the next day. I finally said that the only choices were to try again tomorrow, or I can take a message and give it to the coworker. The customer finally agreed to give me a message, but she insisted that the coworker call her first thing. I assured her I would tell the coworker exactly that. So when the coworker came in the next morning at 9 a.m., she complied and immediately called the customer back. It was 6 a.m. her time. Woke her up. Am I the jerk for going to a family wedding my brother wasn't invited to? I'm 4 years older than my brother Mark. I never got myself into trouble and was always a great student. I graduated and found myself a great job, a loving wife, and all I've dreamed of. Mark is doing good, all things considered, but he sure went the long way. When he got to high school, he would constantly hang out with the wrong crowds and got himself into trouble very often. He barely graduated, and after that, his life went off the deep end. He failed college, only got himself dead-end jobs, and only got by with mine and my mother's help. He also got himself into meds, though I don't know how bad. Still, all things considered, he was always a very good person. Honest, and he never made excuses for himself. He was just lazy and had no direction in life. During this time, he was our extended family's black sheep, especially from our mother's side, our Aunt Mary especially. Mary is very cool, but does act a bit pretentious. Her kids worshipped Mark, and when the stories about his life started going around, half of them were lies, she started putting some distance, but would talk to Mark the same as me when we did meet. Eventually, Mark turned his life around. I don't know what happened, but I know it was really bad. Long story short, he got himself clean. 1 year after that, he was unrecognizable. He was happy, extroverted, and pretty much left his old life behind. After 8 years, he was engaged, with a job and a future. Our family knows of this, and they're happy for him. Unfortunately, Mary never abandoned her old views. She occasionally puts him down because he never went to college and doesn't respect his job. Every time I visit, she likes to show me off as her lawyer nephew, but she never invites him or even mentions him. As far as her friends know, my mother only has one son. Mark knows this, and it hurts him. 2 years ago, Mary's daughter got married, and they planned this huge wedding. Both me, my wife, and my mother got invited, but not Mark. We didn't know how to handle this. We asked Mary's daughter why was Mark left out, and she admitted her mother didn't want him there because it would make them look bad. We decided to go without telling him, so he wouldn't get hurt. He was never even aware Mary's daughter was getting married. Of course, eventually he found out when he saw pictures on social media. He was absolutely crushed. He confronted us and said that if we were family, we should have refused to go without him. I disagreed. We fought, and he went no contact. To this day, my mother feels guilty about it. This was 2 years ago. A couple of weeks ago, my mother found out that Mark just had a kid and had introduced it to our other uncles. She was very hurt since she never even knew his partner was pregnant. She asked him why he didn't tell us about his kid. His answer, "I love my son. I will always be there for him no matter what. I will not expose him to a family that will feel ashamed of him and turn him into a pariah because of some stupid choices." Your brother was hurt enough to go no contact with you for 2 years after you showed him you didn't support him, and you're only now asking this? You're the jerk 7 ways from Sunday. Right? These people only care when they want something. Usually has to do with a new baby. You're the jerk. You and your mother made crappy choices, and Mark made his reasonable one. Not really getting why you wanted to celebrate with Mary, considering that she told you flat out she was embarrassed of your brother, who by then had already turned his life around. Guess you enjoy being the successful brother. Your brother is hurt. I don't blame him. Now, because no one in his family spoke up for him, you are all going to have to work this out. To add insult to injury, his own family didn't even have the personal courage to tell him, and he found out on social media. Then you wonder why he doesn't want to be bothered with you at all. He turned his life around. Mary is judgmental, and everyone folds like a wet paper napkin for her. Shaking my head. If my son wasn't invited to a wedding because of something so lame, I wouldn't go, period. You're the jerk, and so is your mother. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his brother? Please let us know. I'm a renter? Understood. So let's start with some context. My mom and I moved into my grandma's house when I was 5. My godmother already lived with my grandma, so she was also part of the household. Firstly, my aunt has never done anything with her life. She liked to say she had to take care of my grandma, but my grandma was a feisty old lady who happily handled everything herself all the way until she got cancer in her very last years of life. She used my grandma as a crutch to never get a job or really any source of income ever. My mom and grandma paid for this house every year and kept it up and running. Fast forward to me being 22. My mom passed of cancer. We knew my grandma wouldn't be able to afford the house herself, so my wife and I stood to help, because we felt bad leaving right after my mom passed. So for 2 to 3 years, we handled the house taxes, the electricity bill. When the air conditioner broke, we paid to fix that. And I also gave my grandma my old car when I got a new one, so my aunt could take her to the doctor's appointments and whatnot. I did all of this because I was taught to be there for my family by my mom. After those 2 to 3 years, my grandma passed. So now it was only our income and my aunt needing to be supported by us. Again, this is how I was taught family takes care of each other. We felt bad leaving my aunt after my grandma passed, so we stayed again. Bought food for her, cooked for her. I even handled all the dishes and house cleaning. I mowed the lawn. I handled any insect issues the house was having. Even gave her our recyclables so she could at least have a little bit of money for stuff. So it finally gets to a point where I confront her and say, "Look, my mom helped pay for this house. Now I am too. My wife and I want to help you." Notice I said help and not take the house away from you. Make the house nice again. We want to get new carpet, fix the broken windows, etc. For this, though, we'd need you to co-own the house with us. We aren't going to put our money into it just for you to sell it and we end up getting done over. Or also, if you just happen to pass young, the house would just go to the bank. That's a whole nother story, but it's what will happen. She, of course, said no, but only because she wants to keep the house to herself, and I'm her ownership. She's very, very greedy and selfish like that about everything. So we end up arguing, and I say how we stayed because we cared and wanted to help. We want to continue helping, however, we won't just blindly funnel money into your home when we need to make sure our living situation is secure. During said argument, I say how we've been nothing but caring and don't want to take the house. We just want to work with her. Again, no. So I start to get frustrated, and I say, how can you be like this to me, especially when both my mother and I have paid for this house? We put more into it than you ever have. I don't feel owed, but I feel that us working together and owning the house together would be fair, since she doesn't even pay for any of it. I said how we stayed after Grandma passed to help her. Her exact words were, "Well, you should have just left." That hurt a lot, because all that was just for nothing, not even appreciation. Fast forward to another argument, and I bring up how I feel it was wrong of her to take advantage of my mom the way she did. There's way more context to that than above, but again, it's a whole nother story. When I say I think it was wrong, her words were,
"Well, take it up with your mother."
That broke me because I was super close to my mom, and she had only passed for about 2 years, so it was still very painful. That was my breaking point. I could not help somebody this selfish and hurtful. I told her that that was awful of her to say that this house is ours just as much as it's hers. She says,
"Christian, you guys are renters."
Cue the malicious compliance. I say, "Oh, we're renters? Okay." So I started going by doing exactly what me and my grandmother agreed upon when we moved in. I pay the electric bill and the house taxes. That's it. Mowing the lawn? Sorry, wasn't part of my lease. Handling the insect infestation? Nope, landlord's issue. Cleaning your dishes and the $800 pictures you have on the walls filled with dust? Yeah, not my problem. My wife and I care for ourselves now. Her house is going more and more to ruin. Windows have broken more. The air conditioning broke again. The shower broke. Water heater broke and damaged the living room and walls. Termites in all of the wood. All not my problems. My wife and I are currently in the process of finding a place and moving out. We might not even tell her when we do move and just up and leave, letting her sit in her own filth. I mean, it's not in my lease that I need to give her a notice. Yup, leave and don't look back. My mom fell for something similar with her sister who was a paraplegic. My mom took care of her day in and day out, retired early so Auntie wouldn't have to go to a nursing home. She was supposed to give my mom some jewelry and stuff from their mother. Delay until my aunt passed. In the will, left everything to my uncle who didn't do anything and left nothing to my mom. Don't fall for it. Just save yourselves. Those kinds of people are lost causes. And when social services show up at your door, tell them you want nothing to do with her. She made her bed. Time for her to lie in it. Am I the jerk for refusing to split the costs with my ex-wife for my daughter's car? My ex-wife has majority custody of my daughter, Corrine, who's 17. Corrine only comes to our house every other Monday to Tuesday of the weekend. Then she spends the next week completely at my ex-wife's. My stepdaughter, Mackenzie, who's 20, lives full-time at me and my new wife's house. I want to mention that my ex-wife makes almost triple what I make. I'm certainly not poor, and my new wife and I are upper middle class. The point is, my ex-wife and her new husband aren't strapped for cash. Corrine got her driver's license last week, but she's had a car that my ex-wife bought her since she got her permit about a year ago. Before she bought it, my ex-wife wanted me to split the costs of the car with her. I told her no, because it was absolutely ridiculous that she would expect me to pay 50% for a car that would come to my house less than a quarter of the time. That's like paying full rent on a house and only being allowed to live in it half the time. My ex-wife was able to pay for the car on her own anyway. Corrine just got her license, and I was excited because she would be able to drive herself to and from school. However, my ex-wife will not allow Corrine to take her car to our house. I've tried reasoning with my ex-wife because Corrine has her license now, and she shouldn't have to waste time taking the bus on days when she's going to and from houses. My ex-wife is being childish and saying that if I want Corrine to be able to bring her car here, then I need to split the gas and insurance with her. I told my ex-wife I'm willing to split the costs of gas, but I should not have to split insurance when she has chosen the insurance company and policy while I did not even get a say in it. A family friend, Lydia, is calling me a hypocrite because I completely bought Mackenzie's car and pay for the insurance and gas. Mackenzie's biological father is a bum. She doesn't have another well-off parent to pay for it like Corrine does. And besides, Corrine's here only a quarter of the time. I told Corrine this, and if she wants me to buy her a car for here, then we can always go back to court and try to get more custody time at my house. Corrine hasn't complained about it anyway. But Lydia says it's not the point, and Corrine will feel replaced if I refuse to split costs with my ex-wife while paying fully for Mackenzie. But Corrine has not said anything about feeling replaced or complained over the car arrangement. Besides, Corrine and Mackenzie have treated each other like best friends for a few years now, and I highly doubt that will change over a car that Corrine knows Mackenzie's other biological parent can't afford. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. The argument that you shouldn't have to pay because the car is only at your house 1/4 of the time is the stupidest argument. It will be in your daughter's possession 100% of the time, and you are responsible for 50% of her care. Regardless of what her mother earns in proportion to your income, you're the jerk a million times. You're the jerk. So you don't want to pay for a car that rarely comes to your house? How about paying for a car for your kid that you brought into the world? You treat your stepdaughter better than your own kid. No wonder your ex divorced you. You're the jerk. You expect your ex-wife to pay the entire cost for a car because you chose to pay for your stepdaughter's car? It isn't your ex-wife's fault you made that decision, and I doubt she had any say in it. I also think that if you expect people to say exactly how they feel, especially kids, then perhaps you don't know your daughter as much as you should. Not the jerk. When I see stories like this, it makes me so glad I never got married or had kids. I'm 42, and most of my friends never stop complaining about their wives or how spoiled their kids are. Some of them don't even get to see their kids. They just pay child support while the new stepdad gets to spend all the time with them. I don't understand why guys still want to risk this kind of thing in the world we live in today. The most stressful things I have to deal with every day are deciding whether I want Pizza Hut or Taco Bell, and which girlfriend I'm inviting over tonight. Not the jerk, I feel your pain, bro. My ex does the same thing to me. We had 2 daughters together that are both about to start middle school. I rarely, if ever, get to see them. She doesn't even let me see them on court-appointed dates because they'd rather stay home. I've tried to go pick them up myself when it's my turn to have them, but her new husband is twice the size of me. Dude knocked me out cold one time, and ever since then, I know not to go over there. Just like your ex, mine also makes double what I do, yet forces me to pay at least half of everything when I never even get to see my kids. People hear my story and they assume I'm some kind of deadbeat dad. No, I love my kids more than anything. They just don't love me, thanks to the lies their cheater of a mother told them. I did everything I could to keep our family together, but ultimately, I couldn't stay with a woman who I caught cheating 3 times. I love my kids, but sometimes I just wish that I had never met their mother.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.